Oh boy, technology, huh? Sometimes it does not help. I don't know why that is. I've done that. This has happened twice before now where I go outside and all of a sudden everything stops working, which sucks. But it is what it is, right? We'll do the best we can despite that. So let me bring people up in the guest queue. I'm walking the dog too, so I can get a little hairy. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, so if you don't mind, I know we had to disconnect and reconnect. Tap on my face, please. Get the likes. And then here's what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, everybody. Up in the upper left-hand corner, let me point to it. Right up here. I don't know if you can see, but there's a heart that sits just below my C and my name. If you hold that down for like a second or two, it'll pop up a list of your friends, and then you can invite your friends. So please do that if you don't mind, because we just dropped 285 people, unfortunately. So anyway, happy Saturday to everybody. Outside walking the dog.
Hey, while we're getting this up, Chip, I don't know if you could hear me.
Yeah.
I happen to, I just like, I know how to work the TikTok thing and I'm sharing it out for you. But meanwhile, while people are here, there's already 125 people. You walk your dog and I'll explain
Sure.
how to tap, how to do all that kind of stuff. Just allow me to do this. Everybody that's enjoying this conversation, if you're enjoying it, you could easily tap that screen, share out the live. But please, the most important thing to drive up Chip's algorithm, okay, is join his team. That heart right on the top, it's a little yellow heart. Tap that, and you can just for one coin, if you're available to one coin, you could gift through that, and then it gives you exclusive team points. Doing that every single time Chip is live, when you come on, because TikTok likes it this way, when you come on live, every single time that you talk, you comment, you watch, it gives Chip points, because TikTok is a battle app. They like to have that. So you want to have team points. So even if you want to gift, Chip, please do it through that little yellow heart. And every single time you do that, even when you comment, it gives Chip 10 points. It gives Chip 40 points, even if you just watch his live. It drives it up the algorithm, and we all know that everybody is trying to be suppressed. Are being suppressed. Major, with all their force, they're trying to suppress all the voices. So while you're here, if you could just tap out the screen, share it, and please engage. Even if it's in the comments, if you want a panelist to ask a question for you because you don't feel comfortable coming up to the panel and speaking, you could easily mention a panel, somebody in the panel to ask a question for you. Engagement is key. The audience is important, and let's get those likes and shares out. I'm sorry, Chip. I'm just used to modding. I'm sorry, but
No.
I'll be sharing it out.
And let me see if I can even make you a mod if you want to be, because I'd like to have you as one if you don't mind. That'd be really helpful.
I would like
Yeah.
to tell you that I am so excited that you have been joining Smitty's lives.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get you on there for so I'm so sorry, for so long, and I truly appreciate you coming up there, because there's a lot of topics that we need to discuss, especially with the river to the sea. How, I don't know if you heard how Smitty was bringing up today, how like the Americans, like us as Americans, we're not seeing it that way, and we would appreciate and hope, like, I would like to, because when you're on TikTok, you don't realize that you're bringing an entire diverse amount of people from all over the globe, and everybody has a different perspective, and everybody's trying to put out their thoughts in less than a second because they think they're so rushed. But having a panel like this, very calm, back and forth, is amazing, Chip, and you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. For those you don't know, and people probably know this here, but if you don't, just in case, the term from the river to the sea does not mean, as many say, that they want to unalive people and completely destroy the population of the state of Israel. What it refers to is that prior to 1948 and before then, there was relatively an interspersion of populations that lived in historic Palestine, where it was free from all of this crazy stuff we're seeing now because of the implementation of Israel. So all it means is a relative state of freedom for all those who can behave themselves and maintain civility and decency in that region. That's it. Now, obviously, with the political realities of the state of Israel being backed by the United States, even the H Group in their revised 2017 charter sort of understands that there's probably a lesser likelihood that arrangement that should be in place is going to be in place. So therefore, as a compromise, and much to their credit, they've said that rather than pursue the absolute destruction of the state, as well as those who may lie within it who believe in the Zionist, Zionist program and project, that establishing a state, a Palestinian state based on the pre-1967 borders, is the best resolution to this situation. However, because of the Israeli settlements and the fragmentation of the territories, it seems to be impractical. And plus, you have the long-standing desires of those who are the hardliners, who just want to take territory regardless of the repercussions, which is what we're seeing right now, unfortunately. So, great points. And yeah, I enjoy being on Smitty's lives. For those of you who don't know who SoCal Smitty is, he's another TikTok host who does a great job hosting lives. He's how do I describe Smitty? He does an excellent job of moderating the panel. He's very, he's fair, but he's also steps in when he needs to, and he gives everybody a chance to speak their piece, much like I try to do. I think Smitty's got a little more experience than I do, and as you can tell, I'm not nearly as familiar with the ins and outs of TikTok, so thank you for the assist there, because I'm just a 56-year-old guy who's just trying to do this as best he can. Anyway, we have some people back on the panel. We do have a lot less people now than we had when we had to disconnect, unfortunately. So if you're here from the previous live, thank you. What you could do if you want to help us get a good number of people in here to hear a spirited debate and hopefully have some good back and forth in a way that's fun but civil. Please tap on that, my forehead, the little thing on my ski cap here works well. Tap on that because that increases the likes and somehow that makes it better. But more importantly is sharing the like, and the easy way to do that is to tap on the little heart right up here at the top of the screen. Hold that thing for like a half a second. A list will pop up of all of your friends, and you can tap on the invite button for them to come check it out with us. So, especially if there's somebody here in the live who takes a different point of view, who maybe supports Israel. As you can tell from the previous person that was speaking, Oad, I like to have people on who share different points of view. And again, we're going to disagree on a lot of stuff, and that's okay. The point is to have a fair and reasonable point of view. He did mention some things. I want to address those really quickly because I sort of maybe made a responsive statement. But there are things, let's put it this way, there are democratic elements to Israeli society which do in some cases have more liberty than others. For example, if you happen to be somebody who's openly gay, yes, in Israel you have more freedoms to be accepted, but you can't get married in Israel. You may not know that. Israel does not support gay marriage. Marriage in Israel is considered to be a Jewish religious connection between a man and a woman. So therefore, they even discourage, by the way, talk about freedom, they discourage any marriages between people who are not, between Jews and non-Jews. You may not know that, and you cannot get married in Israel, and you cannot marry a non-Jewish person in Israel. It doesn't exist. You can get married outside of Israel, move back in as a married person, and your marriage will be acknowledged, but it's not really something that's approved upon. Even here where I live, it's crazy. I've dated Jewish girls before. They don't want you to marry what they call goyim, which is anybody outside of the Jewish faith or Jewish ethnicity. It's just something that's culturally just not accepted. Unfortunately, it is what it is. So, and not everybody practices that. Let's be clear. That's an overarching statement, but that's the overall sentiment that I've experienced both here and what definitely happens within Israel. So, does anybody want to come up and speak? So, we already had you speak about that. What else would you like to talk about? Thanks for the help, by the way.
Can I actually, because I didn't actually get to speak, can I say something?
Yeah, sure, Obir, go ahead.
I respect you so much, but I do disagree with a few things that you stated.
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes from like my viewpoint on it, like my perspective on everything. I don't agree with a two-state solution. I think everybody that knows me knows that I don't want a two-state solution. I don't think a two-state solution is even sustainable. And I think it's just essentially pushing conflict down the road. Because for a variety of reasons. One, that there are Palestinians that have been for thousands of years on the Israeli side right now, the occupied Palestine. That's the way I look at it. I think the other part of where I disagree is I don't really see actions that Palestinians have taken since we were occupied, it's over 100 years, by the way, of occupation and oppression. It's not 75 years. I know people keep throwing out that number, but that's just the number of years that Israel was officially established. So we've had over 500 villages destroyed. We have had hundreds of thousands of people forcibly removed. We have had every year hundreds of our children put into custody, hundreds of our people unalived. Even before, I was talking to somebody yesterday, he said, Abir, even before October 7th, in just one town in Palestine, in Jenin, in the West Bank, they had over 300 people unalived by Israeli soldiers. So for me, I don't think a two-state solution is reasonable. I don't think that any actions Palestinians are taking should be construed in any way but resistance. I think to say it is anything else, it's really from a perspective that doesn't understand what we are going through personally. And I don't mean that like as an attack on anyone, but we have what you guys have seen going on in our lives since October 7th. We have been experiencing that for decades. It's just so much more extreme and so much more in your face that the world can't deny it and has to watch, but we have been experiencing it for decades. So it's really, I'm just coming from that perspective, but I do respect everybody's opinion on this, except for the person that's trying to make, he left, but the person that was trying to make some kind of justification for what is happening because, oh, Palestine doesn't have rights for their people. If you don't know, the West Bank is essentially controlled by Israel. The Palestinian government in West Bank pays taxes to Israel. They have soldiers that go around the West Bank on a regular basis. They have drones in the West Bank. Okay, they imprison people in the West Bank. Even just 2 days ago or yesterday now, because I'm mixing up my days, they went into Tulqaram, which is a village in the West Bank, and they arrested, blindfolded, handcuffed, and took out dozens of men into ITF custody. So the West Bank is under Israeli control. Gaza is under Israeli control. There is no independent Palestinian government. There's no self-determination or human dignity or ability to function or have an infrastructure for Palestinians. So you guys who are judging Palestinians on their actions or the way that they have lived or what they've built or anything, you're judging them while they are living under oppression and occupation. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to like rant.
No, those are all fair points to make. I think that most people don't understand that all of the quote-unquote peace agreements, proposals, have never been free from Israeli control. And so the point is, why would you accept an agreement, even if it has like better land situations or whatever it may be, when it doesn't provide you autonomy and freedom, which is the whole purpose of the peace agreement process in the beginning. And many would say that there was no intention from the Israeli side to have peace, ever, including the more left-wing governments, moderate or right-wing governments like we see today. So I find it very disingenuous the way the negotiations have happened over the years. And I think authors like Norman Finkelstein and others agree with that, because otherwise there'd be a peace process. Palestinians have agreed to, in principle, a variety of different possibilities, and it's been the Israeli side that won't budge on the control.
Tim, if I may jump in just 30 seconds.
Okay.
I lost the other account, so this is a new account. I don't know if you remember me. Israelis never wanted to have two-state solution. Never. What they want, the whole thing for themselves. Either you agree with them or disagree, it's not going to change anything. So all of this is just brainwashing, trying to drag it as much as they can in taking small areas at a time, illegal settlements. They're just playing with us. That's all what it is. There's nothing more into it. So, and then all what they're trying to do, make life so hard for Palestinians. So eventually they see no hope, nothing, no improvements. Eventually they're all going to leave, because when there's a certain point that you can accept things, and then when it goes beyond that, it's a human thing that you either going to lose yourself or you're just going to leave, right? So
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The other thing to remember is every time you unalive somebody, there are children and other people that are going to live and grow up, and they're going to be upset. The genesis of the H group was based upon the fact that the 3 founding members, their families were completely unalived in massacres by the Israelis inside of Gaza. That's why it exists. It exists for 2 reasons. One, that people were so upset by what happened to their parents and their fellow family members and their neighbors that they couldn't do anything but be radicalized by that, as most of us would. And the other thing is, there's still an ongoing occupation. Just because Israel withdrew its illegal settlements in Gaza in 2005 doesn't mean that the remainder of the territories weren't still occupied. if 80% of your population is still subjected to extreme blockade and occupation, you're not going to sit by and behave nicely. You want the whole thing to be fixed, not just a little piece of it. And that whole idea that we gave them land and they could do nothing but fight back is absurd.
Hey,
But
Chip, I'm
Chip,
not sure,
wait a
but
second.
it's showing you as paused on our end. So we can't see you. I just I didn't know if you knew, but that might
Can you
help
hear
the
me?
live.
Can you hear me or no?
We can hear you. It
Yeah,
just
I
says
can hear you.
Okay.
yeah, it just says
All right.
live paused. Creator will be back.
I'll be back
Oh,
in
and then
about 5
Abir says
minutes. I'll be
after
back.
five. Abir says after 5 minutes it will end the live, so you might want to unpause it.
Corey, it's not that everybody could see in the chat. We can't see him.
So, Chip, going back to your argument, it's all part of the plan. What they do, and we talked about this previously, they exclude people from the system and they try to show the whole world that, hey, they have a chance to be on their own. But in reality, it's just a prison. They put them inside insulation. And then once those people get so frustrated, and then then they point at them and say, you see, they're not behaving good. So that's all what they're doing.
No. Even as recently as I believe it was the last 2 weeks, Israel has authorized additional settlements to be built in the West Bank. This is Israeli settlements in the West Bank. So there is absolutely no intention of Israel to have a two-state solution. And any politician, Israeli politician that sits there and tells me that they want a two-state solution, and it is the Palestinians that are refusing, I will not believe them. I have no trust for them. And a two-state solution, and I think we have to be careful with our language. Like when we say, oh, the Palestinians that became radicalized due to this and this and this, and then they're resisting and responding in this way. I think that that in itself is a very negative language to be using. We're not being radicalized. We are resisting our occupation. And I think, like, for example, my family's village is on the Israeli side. My family's village was completely bulldozed in 1967. I'm not allowed to go back to my family's village. It's gone. So where my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, my grandparents, my mom, all my family were born, married, had children, it's gone. Our land has been taken from us. So to me, all of Israel is occupied Palestine. It's all occupied land. So in order to eliminate that feeling all across Palestinians, the 12 to 15 million of us around the world and the 5.5 million of us living in Palestine, we need to have a one-state solution, or otherwise there will continue to be millions of us who have an issue with Israel, because Israel in itself has been founded on our homes. And to say that we're radicalized because we're resisting that, to me, is a little I don't know. I think that that's not the right word to use. We're resisting our occupation or resisting this. I don't think it makes us radical.
Yeah,
But I will
I agree.
say that when you treat people like animals, what do you expect to happen when there are 500 plus checkpoints where they're literally pointing weapons at children going through checkpoints and making women be strip searched on a regular basis just to be able to enter or go between towns? What do you think is going to happen to people at this point? Yeah, sorry.
It's a fair point. Just to answer, I meant the word radicalized as far as the other side viewing people as radicalized, not so far as that's the case. If that makes sense. Would anybody? Somebody been waiting? Let me see. Who's been waiting to talk? I don't want to cut you off. Let me see. Was it Court Size or who else was waiting to talk?
I just had a quick question for you, Chip, actually. I've been, obviously, Al Jazeera is where I've been getting most of my news. I've heard a lot of people talk about Reuters and stuff. And then obviously we have on Instagram our first person journalist on the ground. I wanted to ask you, because I highly respect you and I think you're very knowledgeable. Where do you consume your news from, and where do you suggest people to go consume their news from?
Well, as I say, I'm not as much of a news person. I listen to a few things. So every day I tune into what's called Democracy Now! And no organization is perfect, but Amy Goodman has been following this issue for as long as they've been open as a journalistic entity. So for those who don't watch the daily program, it's about a 15 or 20 minute daily program. It's live at 8 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, except for holidays. And they do about as good a job of covering the truth of the Israel-Palestine issue. There's stuff on Democracy Now! You cannot get on standard media. So to that regard, I also watch Al Jazeera. I probably check it twice a day. which is good. I also go to a website, and most people think this is crazy, but it's called RT. It stands for Russia Today. And I found over the years that even though this is a Russian-owned, state-funded media organization, the editorial discretion that the various hosts have, as well as the news segments, are much better than any of the stuff I've ever seen on US mainstream media. In fact, it's so accurate that the United States banned the Russia Today app from the Google Play Store and the Apple Store when the Ukraine war kicked off, because it provides accurate news. The Western control of the media, just like the Israelis, the attempt is to control the message, not to allow the facts to speak for themselves. So there are others. I always go to the mainstream sources just to look at what they're saying. So I always go to CNN.com, MSNBC.com, NBC, ABC. I glance through those every day just to see what the mainstream is saying versus what's being said. And every day when I wake up, the very first thing I do on my phone is called Apple News. So I check that first to see. It's always garbage. It's like, what pot of beef stew is the best for the holiday? You know, just complete bullshit off the radar. So again, it's cotton candy. So
Ray's back. She had to drop because we were trying to see if we could fix the glitch, but it still shows you pause, which is fine. But if you could bring her back, if you wanted to.
yeah, I just did. Yep. So who hasn't spoken yet? I think that it is it Corey hasn't spoken yet? Let me let Corey speak, please. Corey, what's on your mind?
Good morning.
Turn. I asked the news question. Go ahead, Quartz.
Yeah, Mr. Chip, I'm surprised that, man, the TikTok is only showing you 100, whereas you as an American, your life should be at least 700 to 1,000 people here.
Yeah.
We all know that you're shadow banned, but you need to move on. You're doing a great job, and keep up the good work. The question is this: how can we break the taboo? We need to break the taboo. We have to ask the Palestinian what is their perspective, what do they want, what the Palestinians want. So there is no two-state solution, as we listen to our brothers and sisters. It's one solution. The one solution is just break the apartheid, just the way South Africa is now a good country. So we need them back. So just remove the two names, choose your name, and you're one country. Nothing to be done. It's an apartheid state. If Israel don't want it, then they need to move somewhere else.
Is anybody talking right now? I think Chip is going to have to restart his live again.
I was going to say, I can't see if he's trying to talk to tell him if he's muted or not.
He's muted. Chip, you're muted.
Sorry, geez, I keep doing that to keep the background noise down. I apologize. Yeah, what I'm saying is, are you saying you want a two-state solution? You want a state solution? What is exactly you're saying? I didn't understand.
We have to take in consideration what our Palestinian brothers and sisters want. So we are outsiders. Who are we to tell them? Only thing is, we hope and pray that we need to break the taboo. We need to take this mindset of Jewish Zionism, both Jewish, Muslim, Christianity. We need to bring Christian people also to Palestine. It has to be just one country. There's no two-state solution as the way we see. We need to end the apartheid state. The apartheid state needs to be ended, and we have to stop the genocide, the G. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. I tend to agree with that point too, because it's going to be impractical to have a two-state solution. But I don't think that the Israelis are going to want a one-state solution, because it's going to give an Arab majority within the democracy. That's, to them, is unacceptable. So I don't see either being done voluntarily by Israel. So it's going to require some sort of external force to create a different set of power dynamics. And so far, with the U.S. providing political cover, that doesn't seem possible. So I don't know what the path to peace is. I don't know if there is one right now, unfortunately. So thanks for mentioning that. Let's see if we can we'll go in order now. It's court size.
Well, I'm going to drop, but I just wanted to add to people that on Instagram, Let's Talk Palestine is a great resource page. They have loads of resources, and they also have a chat channel that messages you with important information. So yeah, feel free to check that out, guys. It's Let's Talk Palestine on Instagram. It's been a great resource for me. So I'm going to drop. Thank you, guys, and thank you, Chip.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good day. Okay, I'm back in the roost. So switch back to Wi-Fi. So hopefully
We can see you.
I'm back. Okay, I'm back to my
Yay.
Wi-Fi.
We can see you.
Okay.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, very good.
You're still handsome, but yay,
There
we
we
can
go.
finally see you and the puppy. I'm sharing it out because I was trying to fix the glitch before. I'll share it out right now to see if we get opposing views. If you have opposition, you have any questions, and you don't want to join the panel, please mention a person on the panel to possibly raise up a question. Remember, again, please tap the live out and join Team Chip. You look like CIA before. Come on, you're stunning. It's freezing out. Enjoy our Saturday together.
Thank you. Okay, let me see. We had Court Size. Did Court Size get a chance to say anything? I didn't see Court Size say anything.
Mr. T. Burns, I'm talking that there's no two-state solution. It's one state. We have to end the apartheid.
Okay, sounds good. Let's let Mohammed chime in. Mohammed hasn't had a chance to speak yet. Mohammed, how are you doing today, and what's on your mind? Okay. Ugh. I don't know if your mic is... Sorry, we've had a lot of technical difficulties today. I apologize, everybody. Had to take the dog out. So let me see if I can let Mohammed in. It says another 45 seconds, Mohammed, so please wait patiently. I'll fill the time in real quickly. So sorry about my look. I'm a little bit flustered from the cold. We had 275 people, and now we're down to like 95, which is okay. But if you could please tap on my forehead, that'll up the likes. And if you can also hold down up here by my name, there's a little heart button. If you press that and hold it for about a second or two, a list will pop up. Then you can share the like with others, especially if you're pro-Israel, but you don't want to speak. Share it with someone who is, so maybe somebody who does like to speak will come up, because we always have our most spirited lives when we have somebody who disagrees, which is fun. I enjoy it. And,
I somebody told me if you're tapping the like bar and you fill it completely, it pushes the live to someone's FYP. So they should like it until the bar is completely filled.
okay, cool. Yeah, I do that whenever I'm on Eric Warsaw's live or SoCal Smitty or whomever else is. I always tap until my finger, literally, I can't do it anymore until I'm just too tired. So please do the same here if you don't mind. Okay, we had a guest that was going to talk, but he dropped off, unfortunately. We have Mary that's coming up. Let's see if Mary can make it through. Mary, how are you? Are you there, Mary?
Yeah, I'm here, Chip.
Okay, what's on your mind?
Nothing. I don't know. I think I pressed the button by mistake. I'm just listening.
Okay, no problem. We'll
If
let
you
talk.
don't mind if I fill in.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, I had to jump off at helping wife with, stuff at the same time. Anyways, Chip, we have had conversations previously, and then sometimes I think we end up repeating the same thing, but I think we have to do that because you don't know if you have new people listening or not. You have to spread the information again and again. So I think we should zoom out and understand why are we in this situation, Chip. And then when all of this problem started off, I feel, and that's my evaluation, I hold the Western system responsible for the current problems. It is because it's the mentality that dates back to the time of Romans. Because if you look at the time of colonization, there's this mentality that we have to have global control, right? In America, it's not very different. And I know it's going to sound harsh, Chip, because I live in America and I have U.S. citizenship, and you're also American, you're born here. But that is the truth. It is the truth that if we don't do it, then someone else or another system or another power will come and take over. And then we will end up being the bad people. And we are actually, look at the problems America and the Western countries and NATO that we created inside Middle East. And only for one reason, hey, if we don't go there, then Saddam might end up having some sort of, A-bombs and some other nonsense and this and that, right? And it's the consequence of those decisions that we have in this country and probably people in Washington that they're making. And I'm pretty sure 99% of it is controlled by Zionists. And because Biden, he made a comment. He made that comment a few times actually. He said that if Israel was not there, we would create one. We would invent one. You heard that, right? You've heard that a few times. And someone else made some sort of comment also that Israel is an outpost. It's an area that America used that to control that area, right? Just like any other military, I don't know how to control explain this. Chip, you know, that in military you have posts, and then you use that to to promote or to advance further. And I think Israel is not very different than what what I just said. So.
Can I just say one thing real quickly as far as moderator goes? I know that sometimes people say kind of, snarky things in the chat, but unless they say something like overtly racist or something really horrific using horrible language, please don't block them or mute them. If they're saying something, and maybe even ask me, should I mute this person? Because what happens is you get people in here that I'd like to have conversations with, they get blocked, which is no fun. And I can even respond to their comments sometimes. Let's have thick skin. It's okay if somebody, wants to talk negatively about our points or say that, there's no such thing as Palestine or whatever. That's fair. But let's not stifle debate. Let's encourage good speech. Thank you for moderators. Appreciate that. Did you want to finish your point? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I think, that's my point. That's basically, and I mean, look, Chip, look what's started happening after World War II. Some people came up with the Cold War, and then from that point on, the whole thing is going bananas. Look at it, right? And as if America is like, if I don't do it, the Russians going to do it, and Russians like, if I don't do it, Americans are going to do it. And then look what's going on, right? And then the Middle East and the Zionist propaganda and everything else.
Yeah, I agree. The whole thing has been a complete S show for a long time. And this is the problem. The problem is the United States. Let's face it. The problem is the United States from the founding to present. If it weren't for the United States, none of this would have happened. Let's face it. So I'm embarrassed. Like I said, I'm from the United States. Forget about this issue for 1 second, as horrific as this is. And it's abhorrent that our country does this. I had an interview on a Turkish TV station and said the exact same thing. As a former Army officer, I'm disgusted about the fact that my country is providing the munitions, the money, the military cover, the political cover. It's beyond reprehensible. But remember that the United States has been doing this across the world since its inception. People talk about the fact that this is a recent phenomenon. No, it's not. The United States took Hawaii. We just took it. Okay, the United States has been involved in the removal of more leaders around the world than any other country times 20. All sorts of military incursions, both covert and overt, across the decades. Read a book by Michael Parenti if you want to see the inner workings of the military aspects and the political aspects. If you want to check the economic pathway the U.S. and the Western imperial powers use, look at Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. This will show you exactly what has happened by people who have been involved in the dastardly deeds. I hate to say this is a broad sweeping statement, but as much as the U.S. lauds itself as this beacon of liberty and democracy and spreader of peace around the world, but like Martin Luther King said in his Beyond Vietnam speech in 1967, he said the U.S. is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, bar none. And the person who is lauded as a hero right now, Nelson Mandela, he was imprisoned for over 26 years in South Africa because of his anti-establishment views. He said specifically that the world will not be free until the people of Palestine are free. And he's considered to be like a hero internationally as for freedom and also against apartheid. So these are obvious things to those of us who have studied them, but they're not obvious to those and not amenable to those who are Zionist, who tend to have inordinate influence in governments like mine, who are able to back and maintain policies that are against the majority opinion of the population and those around the world. And they're using their institutional capabilities. They're using the UN as a tool to stifle international action against a pariah state like Israel. I don't think they're going to get away with it forever. I think that this has turned the tide from a public perception, and it's tilted the balance so far in the direction of anti-Israel that they're never going to have an easy ride of it ever again. It's going to be a rough future for Israel as we now know it.
Chip, don't you think so? We all know whatever has a beginning has an end, right? So don't you think Israel will end up being some sort of bleeding wound that America will never be able to recover? Do you think that that is the final goal? I mean,
Well,
destination? Sorry.
the difference is from a political and military standpoint, like Joe Biden said in the Senate, a couple decades ago. If it weren't for Israel, we'd have to invent one. Israel does have huge strategic and military importance to the U.S. as far as being a bulkhead. And also, the way it's armed and militarized, it does create a deterrent in the region from other actors taking power and consolidating power. And with the fragmentation of nation states, like we talked about under Sykes-Picot, it further entrenches that paradigm. So, again, a lot of things need to change. The problem is the U.S. is incredibly good at using its carrots and sticks to its advantage and has done so for many decades. And therefore, the power dynamics are such that it's too much for other leaders to are either in cahoots with Israel and the U.S., or they're just too reticent to do anything because of what would happen in response. And so therefore, the status quo has continued. And I don't see anything breaking that. This is the tragedy of it, except for the fact that international pressure may be so strong and the blowback politically may be so strong that it may finally force U.S. leadership to do something different. And I hope that's the case, but I'm not encouraged that that's going to be the case, at least at this point.
But Chip, economy plays a big role, right? So
Yep.
if internationally America is losing a lot of trust, if they start dumping dollar, that's a devastating reaction.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't listen, this is a whole lengthy conversation, but here's the challenge with that, okay? We know that with the BRICS nations, the fragmentation that's taking place in the international financial system, as well as how commodities are settled. That's going to take time, though. If you look at what's happened since World War II with the Bretton Woods Agreement that basically established the supremacy of the U.S. dollar, in addition to the agreement that was struck between Kissinger and the Saudis in 1971, we went off the gold standard, and then we went on what's called the petrodollar, which means that the country, Saudi Arabia, agreed to forcibly settle trade in U.S. dollars to the benefit of the U.S. dollar. It's going to take a long time for that to unwind just because of the nature of how pervasive dollars are in the international financial system. But yes, countries not only are going to have more of a willingness to drop their dollar reserves, but as well to join this other group of countries that are going to have some sort of a gold-backed common currency, most likely based on a combination of the Chinese renminbi, the yuan they call it, and primarily that currency may be a mix of a few. I'm not sure how it's going to play out yet, neither are they. But that's going to change, but it's going to take probably between 10 and 25 years to unwind those reserves. Other countries are already not buying U.S. debt, which is the typical way they deposit their excess reserves. China especially has pulled away, and they're reinvesting in gold. China has bought more gold than any other country combined for the last 2 decades, sort of in a quiet way for a while. But they have the largest gold reserves in the world now. And that's why they're doing that. They're using it to back up this new currency. The Chinese think long term. They're able to because they have control over their political situation, and people can't, wag the dog short term, which is to their benefit. So I think in the long run, you're right. I think in the short run, again, this is the challenge. What in the short run can we do to leverage change? And the answer is, unfortunately, we can do what we can do, but what we can do is not enough to shift the balance of power at this particular moment, and that's why it's tragic.
So, Chip, I want to ask you a last thing, and I'm going to jump off. What is with these Ashkenazis like Kissinger's and Brzezinski? You know that guy, right?
Yep, I sure do.
What is with these people? And they have been manipulating our foreign policy so much and got us into a lot of troubles. And what is with these people? They run away from these countries like Poland or whatever, that's fine. And then they get a chance to become some sort of advisor or whatever, high people inside the government. And then they become so evil, Chip. Have you had time to think about it, about these type of people?
Well, think of it this way. So they and many of them, they believe in the Zionist movement. They're not even religious. What they do is they hide behind their religion to justify the fact they use that biblical interpretation to justify their claim on the land. But in reality, all they want to do is have the land for themselves and to kick out those who are on it. That's it. And it's to benefit people who are Jewish, not who practice Judaism.
I
That's
got
why
that point, but Chip, I'm talking about people like Kissinger was mad at Vietnamese. Like, look what he did. Under Brzezinski, he went to Afghanistan, and we know all. I don't understand why these people, as if they're so thirsty to influence the foreign policy of this country. And I understand why, because they were treated really badly in East Bloc. I understand that. And they hate Russians. And I also understand. But they become so evil. And I'm trying to understand, what is it with you guys that you can't just be a normal, just like everyone else?
Well, remember the colonial mindset that pervades a lot of these larger, more stronger countries has been around for as long as time with human societies. Ever since there was stratified, hierarchical human societies, there's been conquest, exploitation, and dominance. And so the U.S. is just the worst possible example of that. And those who fit into that paradigm, who tend to benefit from the outcomes of empire, push it. It's not just people who are from, let's say, Ashkenazi Jewish background. Now, having said that, it's a particularly, I would say, unpleasant version of that colonialism, given that you have people that are not even from the region from a DNA standpoint, claiming that they have the land, they're entitled to the land. But if you gave a DNA test to 1,000 Palestinians and 1,000 Israelis, you're going to find 885 Israelis that are from somewhere else from a DNA standpoint. You're going to find 995 Palestinians that have the true Canaanite DNA from the original inhabitants of the region. That's just truth. That's the way it is. Yeah, Empathy, you can request to come up. Let me see if I can get you in here. Yeah, I'll bring you up. So anyway, I don't know that. Listen, I'm disgusted by it in any instance. This is one that I particularly find disgusting that I just so happened to learn about when I was a lot younger. But you know, people always ask me, why do you focus on this one and not the others? Because it's worth focusing on. And plus, with what just happened on the 7th, it's obviously much more in people's front of their radar right now. But it's never good anywhere, including my country, by the way, which is one of the worst examples. Way more people died in the founding of this country with, quote, manifest destiny, where somehow our forefathers thought they had the right to take something from somebody else. It just is a sick quality of the human existence that I don't harbor it. I don't want to harm somebody to have something for myself, but a lot of people don't think that way.
Chip, can I ask you a question before I go to work?
Yeah, of course.
Can you sum up everything, from your vast experience as an armed officer? I want to know that what has Israel achieved so far from day one till today, 107 days? How do you sum it up, and what's your conclusion? How do you see the future now? That's my last question, and I'm dropping off.
Well, in terms of actual quote unquote achievement,
Just don't leave. 'Cause I just want to answer.
I'll use it. Just one sec. You dropped. Oh, there you go. Just 1 second. I'll be glad to throw you into the mix. So to answer that question as best I can from their point of view, this is not from my point of view, from their point of view, what they feel they've achieved is, one, they've been able to, quote unquote, this is their language, drive the H group out of the northern part of Gaza. Not entirely, because that's not true. We know from some of the videos that we're seeing, there's still conflict going on there. But that's their point of view. They are technically militarily occupying, and they're building some sort of dividing structure between North Gaza and South Gaza. That's the facts on the ground. So from their point of view, they've, quote, won the North. And they also have claimed publicly they plan to have a permanent, or what they call indefinite, presence in Gaza, whatever that may mean. So in that regard, they have done those things. There are military troops at those locations, but there's still, really strong resistance that's going on, and they're losing way more troops and equipment than they're acknowledging publicly. And I think they're also overclaiming the number of militants that they've unalived or captured than is accurate. But in terms of what this is doing to them, on the flip side, is that the idea that the IDF is the most moral army in the world, that myth has been completely shattered. People with their own two eyes are seeing the barbarity, and they're just aghast. They're like, oh my God. And Israel is losing the PR war, which, by the way, from a political standpoint, is probably the most important aspect of this. The military side of it is insignificant versus the perception. And the only good thing I can say is that the perception has shifted so dramatically, especially on people under the age of 30 who are on these apps, because there's no way to hide realistic video. Everybody has copies of videos or have seen videos of atrocities. Right? Now, in fairness, some of the things that happened on 10/7, to be fair, were atrocities. We just don't know the extent to which it was done by the H group versus the response by the military or other aspects of their Hannibal directive. And I've seen, just to let you know, I've seen personally myself, about 11 people. I watched it happen in real time on a video where they were, pow-powed, and they didn't survive. And one dog, which, by the way, hurt me more than the other, 11 combined. And I've seen a lot of IOF soldiers that were unalived. But I've seen no video of graping of mass unaliving of civilians by the H group on their GoPro cameras. Israel claims they have all this evidence. The point is, what people have seen is contrary to the narrative that Israel's been putting out along with the US for decades. And so people are waking up, more eyeballs on the situation, as well as more people understanding the dynamics than ever before. That is going to be to their detriment, I believe, long term. And hopefully there's a way for pressure to be brought to bear based on that factual reality that has efficacy in terms of changing the dynamics. And right now I don't see it at the very moment, but it's going to depend on what the people do to push back against the government. That's why I talk about this mass movement being so important. The typical process of voting is stymied by the AIPACs of the world and the other interest groups and all the moneyed interests, many of whom are run by or benefited by people who believe in this cause. And they're from groups of people that promote Zionism and the concept of perpetuating the Jewish state, which, by the way, in and of itself is not a horrible thing, right? We don't want to condemn the fact that people who are Jewish wanted safety from persecution, but the way it was carried out was completely unfair. There's a big historical injustice that has accompanied this change, and people who deny that or look the other way they're being disingenuous. There was something called the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which everybody claims was a laudable thing. Well, how can you praise the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising against the oppression from the Germans, and at the same time, if your government's maintaining a blockade and an occupation, which are both acts of war, for them to fight back? It's inconsistent to say you praise the one and you condemn the other. So, I don't think there are many benefits to Israel right now because they've made themselves the bad guy when before they had some support that they could maintain, which makes the Americans the bad guys. And everybody sees it now. And I've had people say this to me also, more people than I can count. Hey, Chip, I didn't know much of this stuff before, but now it's caused me to question everything I've been told about. And most of the things I'm finding out are total bullshit. So it's woken a whole category of people up, both internationally, who many people outside our country have known this about America for a long time. That's why they call us the Great Satan. But inside the country, many Americans are waking up who otherwise would have had no clue for the rest of their lives, which would further increase the likelihood of a mass movement taking place, which I think needs to take place. But I don't know if it will take place. Okay, I think the person, did you drop off or are you still on the line? Okay, Empathy wanted to jump in and they've been very patient to wait, so I appreciate the patience. Let me let Empathy jump in real quick and then we'll go from there.
No, it's funny because that kid, he was talking, I understand his sentiment, but just some of the things are funny. Like, they didn't run away from Poland. I mean, Poland is the one country that the German, schmazzies didn't have to go looking for. They collected us all, right? So that's pretty funny.
Can you, Empathy, can you let people know your background so they understand where you're coming from? Because we had a very interesting introduction last night.
I'm American Jewish. I am Ashkenazi. I had always kind of been, there's two sides, a fence rider. And then over the last couple of weeks, it was like the upside down went right side up for me. And what's funny is you say that like this woken up a lot of people to our whole existence as a country, the United States I'm speaking of. And what's crazy is that I was so deep in a cult that I knew that everything America said is bullshit, but somehow I believed that everything about Israel was true. That's a crazy thing that I have to reckon with, that I have to journal about. That's nobody else's problem. That's a me problem that I have to deal with. But I just thought two of the things he said were extraordinarily funny, which was that we ran away from Poland and that we had an issue with Russia, which I'll tell you, Russia was much more instrumental in ending World War II than United States or UK or the French would ever be. And they lost 25 million people in the process. So Those are just two very funny statements from him that he said.
Real quick, I think the audience is wondering, I am too, how is it that other people can't break free that you have? Like, what was your emotional change and what do you think would get other people to have a similar experience?
Okay, so I think anybody who's on the left, who rallied for Black Lives Matter, who rallied for all of the causes on the left, they are reachable because they're like me. It just takes a moment to say, why are you there to support all these causes, but yet this one other cause you have such a blind spot for? So I think anybody on the left is 100% reachable. Very simple. You have the conversation with them. If there's 9 schmatzis at the table and you sit down with them, there's now 10, right? And the humanity of it. Like, where's your humanity? How many people have to be unalived before you can see that this is wrong? So the people on the right, I don't think there's any hope for them. It's because it's part of their religion, more so. I'm talking about the evangelicals. Being Zionist is like one of the tenets of their religion, and as a group, they are much more likely to be going to a church on Sunday. Don't forget, most Jews, right, except for the Orthodox, are secular, except for during the two high holidays. Then they have to open up all the doors in the shul and make it bigger for those people who want to come in. But so those on the right who are Jewish, you're never going to reach them, because, and those who are evangelical, which you got to remember, there's not a lot of Jews in this, country or around the world, but I mean, what do we have? 150 to 200 million evangelicals in the country. They're going to be the problem. They're
Well, it's not
going to
that.
be the hardest ones to wake up.
It's not quite that number. It's more like about 55 or 45, but it's still a huge number.
There's only that many evangelicals.
In the United States, yeah, we have a population of 339 million, and of that population, about 65 million are those are even consider themselves evangelical Christians, which is a big
Okay.
number.
Which I was going to say, that's a huge number. And I don't know how to reach a lot of them, but I think the people on the left can absolutely be reached by questioning their humanity. And like on all these people, it's the fear of the unknown. It's just been nuts, for me this past week that there's nothing but love. I mean, not one Palestinian person has said, we want Israel back or Palestine back. No, they just said, we want to be treated fairly. It's almost like apartheid in Africa. The black people did not say, we're going to go after all the white people. They just said, for the love of God, can you not see us as human too?
Yeah,
So I
good
think
point.
that's the way to help them see, is make the comparisons, like the comparisons to the Warsaw Ghetto. That was a huge, okay, now I have to process that. It's hard when you're in a cult. It's really hard.
I think that's a good comparison. Is it is a cult of sort of ideology and thought that's sort of temporarily unbreakable. Have you ever watched some of the resources that I've shared with the audience? Which is one is Life in Occupied Palestine. Have you ever checked that one out before?
I haven't. What I was on YouTube because I was looking for something. I found a very interesting, I don't remember, documentary from Al Jazeera. Take it for what
Okay.
it's worth. It was a documentary from Al Jazeera on what happened leading up to 48. And they had video. Back from then and pictures of them clearing out the towns. That was very powerful to me. Um, I don't know how to explain it. It's just crazy. I mean, it's like Americans always thinking they're the good guys, finding out they're the bad guys. That was very easy for me to swallow. So just taking those things and applying it.
Okay, it's very interesting. So like I said, at some point, I don't know if you messaged me or not. The reason why I ask people to message me off app is because I've had these conversations. Then, of course, my account's been taken down. And I can't see the messages. So, if you look in my link tree, if you don't, I don't know if you already contacted me. I haven't checked my email today, but if you do, I want to have you on a panel when we have two pro-Israel people, two people who have been pro-Israel but have changed, and then two people, of course, who are pro. I think that'd be a very interesting conversation to be had. So
Yeah.
I'd
I
love you
heard
to
you
be there
talking
for
about
that.
that. I thought it'd be great. We got to
Um,
get Mo out in it too.
yeah, if you
Mo
don't know
has to
Mo
be on
Kochi,
there.
he's great. Okay, real quickly, before you go, I want to make a quick announcement. And I know for those of you who followed me before, you know how critical I am of the American political system. And I think it's almost irreparably broken with all the money and stuff. But I also think, like anything else, it's good to do what we can, even if it may not, quote, solve the problem. It puts something better into the mix. So with that in mind, there's somebody who I support, believe it or not, for Senate, a U.S. Senate candidate that I think is great. I don't agree with her on everything. There's no such thing as a perfect person, but in terms of what you believe, but enough things connect with me. What I think is, I think she's a great person. I met her, believe it or not, at a peace rally after the Ukraine war. Anybody of us who've been in combat or who are pro-peace advocates, I met her there. Not just briefly, I kind of saw her there. I didn't really meet her. Her name is Diane Sare, Sare. and she had, I think, 4 bodyguards around her at the event, which was funny. You couldn't really, get through them to speak with her. But I did see her at the Palestinian rally in D.C. So I immediately went up to her. She was passing out literature with a few supporters. And I said, hey, I introduced myself to her. Hey, I really like the way you think and the things you talk about. And I'm glad you're pro-peace. And I would love to learn more about how I can help promote you. So with that in mind, I mentioned this platform. Diane is going to be a guest coming up this Wednesday. It's going to be Wednesday. What is the date on Wednesday? Today's the 20th. So what is that? Tomorrow's the 21st. So the 24th, I guess it is. That'd be January 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I hope everybody will let other people know, because I think if you go check out Diane, you can go to YouTube and type her name in, and she's done a lot of public speaking. And listen, I can tell you this, I've never heard her say one thing that I believe is factually inaccurate about the things that she talks about, including the Ukraine war and this situation in Gaza. And she's very outspoken, as you would imagine. The problem is getting on the ballot in different states. It's hard to get on the ballot. You need a certain number of signatures, depending on the state's rules. And of course, the two-party system tries to crush you. They try to keep you out of debates. They try to marginalize your reach. They run all sorts of attack ads. So it's an uphill battle, right? But we need to have people in public office who can at least speak truth to power on a public stage. My reach, of course, is, I have 110,000 followers on TikTok, for which I'm eternally grateful. But there's 339 million Americans. So think for a second, if you have somebody who's on the public stage, maybe C-SPAN covers it, maybe some of these alternative media covers it, and it reaches 10, 15, 20 million Americans, much bigger reach, right? So that's why I care. And that's why I want to get people like Diane elected, even though it's a long shot. And she may not win. And even if she does win, she's probably not going to get to be, so Senates are 6-year terms. So by 2030, she'll be out, because you just can't survive in this environment. You can't survive without.
Whose seat is she running for? Schumer's or?
No, Schumer's the permanent establishment from Wall Street. He's going nowhere. It's Kirsten Gillibrand is the other seat.
Okay, it's her seat. Is Kirsten running again?
Oh yeah, she's running. She's running under the Democratic Party. Her name is Diane Sare, S-A-R-E, Diane Sare. And
So what is Diane running as an independent?
she's running as an independent to try to unseat Kirsten Gillibrand. And by the way, it's a super long shot. I've made a donation to her campaign as best I could do, and I'm supporting her. I'm going up to New York City to help support an event she's doing in February. I'm doing what I can. Right. And everybody's got to pick and choose their battles. Right. She's very, very, very pro-Palestine and very
Is she
critical.
on TikTok?
Yeah, she's on TikTok, and I'm following her on TikTok. So she's, like I said, she's going to come on with she's going to be a co-host on a live with me, and you'll get to see her, listen to her points of view, her policies. She's an extremely nice person and likable. She's got all the kind of core values you'd want someone to have. She cares about the public, not about the corporations, blah, blah, blah. Everything. Listen, if I could do a bunch of check boxes for somebody, she checks 99 out of 100 boxes that I would check if I could pick somebody to run for. And she's courageous. She's courageous too, right? She's willing to speak up to power. She's not worried about the consequences, which could be serious, right? In this environment, it's not a good environment.
We wonder if we could get the Caucasian Muslim, is that her name, guys? On because she's got over 1 million followers.
Caucasian.
One second, Jack. So Empathy, are you okay? If Jax jumps in and says something real quickly? Yeah, let me do
Jax
that.
can always jump in.
Okay,
Always.
Jax, please.
Thank you. Are you talking about Caucasian Arab? Is that who you were speaking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I shared the live. She's at a bless her. She's at a Cleveland doing a comedy. She's a comedian. She's doing a comedy show with a lot of different Palestinians to also raise awareness on top of everything. So I did share it out to her. Chip, I've been around for over 100 days, and I found an amazing group of people. So I've been sharing them out. I would love to plug in one. I don't know how. Are you going to be on for a while today? Or?
Probably till about 3:30 p.m. I'm guessing. That's about 3.5 hours. Is about as much as I usually can do.
Okay, perfect. Because also, I would love for you to have like a Dr. Liam. I don't know if you've ever seen him before.
I've actually hosted a live with Dr. Lee.
Oh, that's great. All right. Yeah, I shared it to him, but he's at a conference. But everybody here, please watch a movie. It's a documentary, actually. It's called Israelism. I will put it in the comments. Yeah. Cornel West is in it. It's an excellent, excellent film. It was actually filmed about 2 years ago. And ironically, I was at some of the protests in that documentary. Much of the protests were in New York. Oh, Kitty. No wonder Dr. Liam loves you. So, because Minerva is, oh, we got to get you some emotes also, Chip. But besides that, watch his realism. It breaks it. Get get tissues ready. It's very, it basically, you would think it was filmed yesterday, but it was actually, and it is very sad that it took this long. I mean, it's been in our eyes, but the thing is, with the beauty of social media, with the beauty of having things given to you in a nanosecond, we're able to see it now. And I'll stay muted and I'm going to share it out for you. But thank you, Chip, for joining in on like everybody. Your voice has been amazing and I do adore you. And of course, the beer and empathy. I'm so proud of you too, and I love you. And one thing I would like to say about empathy, even her children, mention how your children feel a bit of relief, how you mentioned that before to me.
Yeah, Chip was asking last night. I think my kids had come around before me and were afraid to talk, like had to dip their toes in like real slowly with, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, are you really so deeply entrenched in being right? And I think that's a huge issue, not just for me, but for me and for like most people.
Yeah.
For most people. And I think that that's something that a lot of people, myself, need to stop needing to be right. That's a
Sure.
huge American problem. You know what I mean? We like
Yeah,
to
that's a
be
good
right,
point.
so we just block things out.
All right, Mohammed has been waiting incredibly patiently. So for right now, what I'm going to do is let Mohammed come up and then Mufasa, and then we'll go from there. So thanks for being patient. And what would you like to say, Mohammed?
Hi, how's it, guys? I'm South African, and yeah, I just wanted to say that I've been an activist since the anti-apartheid movement, right up to now. And the way I see it is that this particular situation, and I'm not imposing this on the Palestinian people or anyone else, but there can only be a one-state solution at this point in time. And the reason I say it, looking from the outside, the Zionists have been incredibly greedy in the way that they have dealt with things. If they had been more approachable 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, you would have two states, viable states perhaps now. But there's no ability to have a viable two-state solution anymore. And from what I've seen, from the fact that, in the 80s, when we didn't think the apartheid government would have fallen as rapidly as it did, what happened was that as soon as the Soviet Union was on the brink of collapse, the money dried up from the United States, from the United Kingdom, from Israel itself, because they were the last supporter of apartheid in South Africa, because they wanted to see it succeed. Hence, it was one of the reasons why our legal team here in South Africa went hard against the Zionist state, because it is a natural enemy as such, because they were the ones supporting the apartheid government right till the end. But what I'm saying is that I really cannot see a two-state solution ever working now, purely because of the greed of the other side. So, and what will happen is, like in South Africa, if it's a one-state solution, what's going to happen is that even though you might have a parity of populations now, what happened in South Africa was the supremacists, the white supremacists, most of them just left. They either went to Australia or to Canada, the United States, or to Israel itself. You'll see the same thing happening there, and then like it started, it will almost disappear almost immediately, because they can't tolerate being in an equal society. That's all I want to say for now, but it's been lovely hearing you guys.
Well, thanks, Mohammed. I appreciate you being here. And by the way, being from South Africa, that's very, timely given what we're seeing. Yeah, unbelievable. This is a really interesting time to be alive, right? It's just lots going on. Okay, Mufasa's been waiting patiently as well. Thank you for Mufasa. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi, Brown. Thank you for bringing me up. I would like to talk about a lot of things, but I don't want to take too much of your time. Actually, I'm wondering if I'll show you that the Palestinians have genocide attention toward to the Jewish people, and I can prove it. I mean, will you change your mind a little bit about the conflict, or you're going to keep on thinking the same way?
Well, put it this way, I'm always open to new information, and I try to go out of my way to listen. I don't know if you heard me say this earlier. I'm somebody who always listens and tries to be polite, but in addition, I go out of my way. I went to the pro-Israel rally in Washington, D.C. Now, I'm somebody who's been defending the Palestinians for a long time, At the same time, I want to listen to what other people think and say, and because it helps me understand them better, which I always try to do. And the reason I do that is because I think the only way peace will ever occur is instead of talking at or around each other, we have to talk with each other. So with that in mind, I'd be happy to listen to you. Please tell me how you feel, and who knows?
Great. First of all, appreciate you coming with intentions to peace. I wish for peace as well. I care for the Palestinian people, and I wish for them to thrive and prosper and have their own country. What I cannot see is a one-state solution, because I know for facts that they want to annihilate the Jewish country and to unalive the Jewish people. And I can start from example, the leaders of age group that stated it on international TV, that they want to conquer the Jewish country, and the 7th of October will repeat itself a million times if necessary. I can go on to the charter of the age group, which of course the people in Gaza voted for them. Research show more than 86% supporting them in Gaza. And they wrote in their charter, the old one and the new one, that all of Israel belongs to them, very specifically, and only to them. By the way, also the Christian holy places, also the Muslim holy places belongs only to them. Not even one stone should be surrendered to the Jewish people who lived on the land for thousands of years. And they're also quoting the El-Bukhari Hadith, and they're talking about the end of the time. In the new charter and the old charter, they're talking about something they need to do in order to bring the end of the time. And I'm quoting, the time will not come until the Muslim will fight. In Arabic, this word is qatalu, fight until death. Fight the Jews and unalive them. And until the Jews will hide behind the rock and the tree, and then the rock and the tree will say, "Oh, Muslim, a servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and unalive him." So they wrote it down in two charters. They stated it on international TV a couple of times.
Mufasa, I'm not at all trying to stop you from sharing what you want to share. The only reason I'm doing this is I can't remember all the points that someone brings up. I just want a brief chance to reply. I'll put you right back on, I promise. So my understanding, I've read the revised age group charter. Now, the original charter, I agree, the language in there is reprehensible. I completely disagree with anything that intends to take another people out, so to speak. However, my understanding, I've read sections 16 through 20 of the revised charter in 2017. Anybody can Google it. So if there's a section of the charter that I missed, if you could please let me know the specific section, I'll be happy to review it. But on top, what I'm trying to say is this: the language in the revised charter did change. For those of you who haven't read it yet, they don't recognize the state of Israel, which has never changed, which take that for what it's worth. But they changed the language away from wanting to, quote, unalive Jewish people. What they basically said was oppression anywhere in the world is to be resisted and to be criticized. And that therefore, because the oppression is here in terms of what the Israeli government and the Israeli Zionist movement has done, given the dynamics of what we've seen since before and after 1948, that they oppose that. And they mainly are opposed to Zionism, not the individual Jewish population based on their religion or their ethnicity. That's pretty specific language that refutes the idea that everybody from the age group, including the entire people that voted for them, I don't know what the numbers were exactly, but yes, they won the election. But remember, this is fair to say too, Mufasa, it happened a long time ago. So half of the population, if not a little bit more, weren't alive when that vote took place. And most of them are under the age of 18. So they had no say in the matter. They've grown up in an environment where somebody else is imposing their will on them if certain things are happening within the territory they don't agree with. And there are people in any country that don't agree with the leadership. We're seeing that in Israel right now with respect to the Netanyahu government. Almost done. So to make the claim, the broad sweeping claim, that everybody, because of that vote that took place in 2006, automatically de facto supports any of the more radical members who may have indeed said things like, A, they want to unalive Jewish people, or to use disparaging language towards the Jews, or B, have said that things like the 7th are going to continue over and over. This is just the starting point. Remember one thing, and again, I'm not trying to justify what was done to the extent that it harmed civilians and all the hostages that were taken. Don't get me wrong. I am against civilians being hurt on both sides. And based on what we've seen so far, just on math, probably about 600 or 700 civilians, maybe less. I don't know who was uniformed, who was part-time soldiers, who was civilians that got harmed that day. We don't know exactly who harmed them because the military did come in and kind of cause havoc, right? So we don't know. And a lot of the atrocities that have been talked about have not been proven by factually released, publicly released information. So no reason to doubt the testimony, but no way to go. confirming the testimony. Fair enough. And then finally, to hold everybody accountable to that one standard and collectively punish them because of that is unfair. I disagree with those who want to unalive Jewish people. I think what everybody wants, and I agree with you, it's not going to happen. A one-state solution would create an Arab majority, right? That's not acceptable to people from Israel. I understand that point. Two-state solution, impossible because of the fragmentation of the physical territory, 700,000 settlers, impossible to break that up. So here we are at a big impasse. But the problem remains for Israel. And again, I want to see Israel safe and secure like most people around the world. If they disagree with the occupation and the blockade, they still want security for Israel and they're backing up the war effort. I understand all those points. But Israel will never be free from retaliation, ever. And I'm almost done. Because there's an injustice that's being perpetuated by it. Nor would you, as a citizen of a group of people that's in a territory that has no recognition, no respect, no dignity, and you have brutality being imposed upon you, you're resisting something. You're not fighting because you have nothing better to do or offensively challenge somebody. Just like in my country, we had patriots that fought the British occupation. And just like in the Warsaw Ghetto, there were people that rose up. Yes, they didn't use the same tactics and they didn't do things that were accused like raping and other atrocities, but they resisted a force that was controlling them. That's the part I want people to think about. How can there not be a resistance to something if there's nothing to resist? Why does H group exist in the first place? If there was nothing to resist, why would they form? You're making the claim that it's abject hatred of Jewish people. I completely disagree. And the language in their document backs that up. Let me let you talk. I'm going to let you go for a couple minutes with no other thing on my end. You're ready to go. I'm going to mute myself. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, you made a lot of points, so it will be hard to reply to all of them. But first of all, I would like to amplify. I did not at any point said all of them responsible. So you just put a word in my mouth. I do agree that not all of them responsible for it. Totally. I've been into Gaza for 2.5 years. I've seen people living there. They don't care about the Palestinians or age group or Fatah or Israel. They just want to live their lives. I'm completely aware of it. At the same time, I did say research shows. 5 of them, actually, 2 by Palestinians themselves, 3 from Israelis, that shows that the vast majority, more than 80%, for the very least, some shows more than 85% in the population of Gaza support age group today. So this is number 1. Now you said about the charter, but you completely neglect, first of all, in paragraph 2, they are stating all the land belongs to them very specifically. In paragraph 1, they are stating for them it's a holy war. They are part of the Islam, and they are saying specifically something that contradicts itself, by the way. They are Arabs. Arabs originate in Arabia Peninsula, but at the same time they are saying they are originate from Palestine. Now they're saying also in paragraph 10 that Jerusalem, all of it belongs only to them. In paragraph 7, they're quoting something very interesting in the new charter I'm talking. And in a very clever way, they are hiding their real intention by saying only, and I'm quoting, and they will continue in their mission until the promise of Allah is fulfilled. What is the promise of Allah? Obviously, they are referring to the same paragraph, paragraph 7 in the old charter, the quote of the Hadith, that going to the annihilation of the Jewish people. Same paragraph, same code, they're just hiding it. Later on, yes, I agree, they're saying they don't have a problem with the Jewish people, only the Zionist movement basically want to eradicate the only Jewish state in the world, while at the same time we need to remember that Jewish people were ethnically cleansed from almost all the Arab Muslim countries in the world, brutally expelled. Now, about the numbers and the collective punishment, yes, obviously in every war, there is one side stronger and one side weaker. That's obvious. Israel didn't initiate this war. Age group did initiate this war. Of course, there were a lot of things prior to that. But when we look at the numbers, even if I take the numbers by age group themselves, which I can refute and show you how they are manipulating with the numbers, but they are claiming something around 25,000 casualties, right? The IDF already confirmed, meaning they have footage and videos to show 9,000 age group members combatant being unalived. They are estimating 14,000, so that already make the majority of this number. One very significant detail that everybody completely neglecting out of the picture is that age groups only since the 7th of October already fired more than 10,000 missiles with intention to unalive civilians aiming to main cities in Israel. More than 10% of them, actually estimation is around 20%, but let's say 10% of them landing actually in Gaza and unaliving their own population. So that's at least 1,000 missiles that are actually age group unalive their own population.
You're muted, Shep. You're muted.
Yeah, you raised a lot of interesting points.
Hang on, let me just finish real quick.
Hold on, because I told I give you 2 minutes. I gave you 3.5. So that trying to be liberal. There are people that really want to answer. If you want though, Mufasa, I'll bring you back. I'm not gonna try to stymie what you're saying because I think that happens too much on these panels. Real quickly before I bring up Abir to provide some of her point of view, I just want to say this. I don't know for sure what the numbers are with respect to the Ministry of Health inside of Gaza. But my understanding is, and this is what they've said, that over 24,000 civilians, and maybe a lot more because of the rubble and indeterminations of others, not combatants.
But zero combatants, right?
Hold on. Let me finish. I don't know. Let me finish the statement. You might agree with me once I finish this. However, it is possible that what you said is accurate because I don't have any way to verify it. Okay. So in fairness, I think we have to keep an open mind about that particular set of numbers for both sides. That's fair. What's also fair though is in the statements that were made following 10/7, there was a lot of accusations. First, it was 1,400 people. Then it was 1,200 people. Then it was 1,057. So that goalpost got shifted. Then we were told that everybody who was unalived, who wasn't a soldier, which was only a few, it was all civilians that were unalived and all these other atrocities by the H group. Then we learned about 40 babies, which was claimed that didn't happen. There's no proof of that. Then we learned about other atrocities, no evidence provided publicly, like raping and those kind of things. Now I did see some video of some atrocities. I'm not saying none of it happened. Then we find out that the Israeli military, who responded to it under this new doctrine called the Hannibal Directive, potentially engaged a lot of civilians, maybe inadvertently or maybe without knowing who was whom, but they were given the engagement rules they were given was attack first, question later. So tanks entered different kibbutzes and fired on that. Artillery was fired into some of the kibbutzes to neutralize the enemy, and unfortunately, if anybody else went with them, so be it. So we don't know. There's photographs of vehicles that are burned with people inside that weren't even recognizable until you had to do DNA testing. I acknowledge all that. H Group doesn't have the weaponry to do that stuff, and we have footage from Israeli pilots as well as testimony from Israelis that are saying that the military did these things and they were people caught in the crossfire, and a lot of them on. So we don't know the numbers there either. So in fairness, that's a both sides. It could be that the H group only unalived 140 people and the remainder was done by the military or whatever the numbers are. I don't know for sure. Either way, it's horrific, right? But we mentioned numbers. You can't deny that X number of Palestinians have died, way, way, way more than who died on 10/7. That's irrefutable. And that is disproportionate. Most people believe that if they were targeted, maybe like Rangers or targeted attacks on the H group, where you go into the tunnels or you fight, building to building to get, that's understandable given the circumstances of what happened. I think most people would say, yeah, Israel has a right to neutralize the threats to their security. I get that. Not the way they've been doing it. And this claim, that sort of overarching claim that all of the civilians, or at least most of them, who were unalived were because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people who forced them to stay. Now, come on. If you're a militant and you know the enemy is bombing buildings indiscriminately all over town, the last place you're going to do is sit in a damn building and force people to stay there. That's absurd. Anyway, let me let Abir reply to that, and I'll bring you back on. I promise you, Mufasa, I'm not going to silence you.
Can I reply like in 30 seconds?
Just give me, let her talk, and then I'll bring you back up, okay? And then we have other people that want to talk too. So thanks for being patient. I really appreciate it. Yes, Abir.
Waste too much energy responding to some of the Hasbara that I have heard repeated over the last 100+ days. But really the two things that I just want to point out, the level of anti-Islamism, the Islamophobia coming out of his mouth, going back and forth on Muslimin this and Muslimin that, and we want this and we want that as some kind of justification for oppressing and occupying us for over 100 years, our people by the thousands every single year, for demolishing over 500 of our villages. And then when that doesn't work, because we are human beings in this audience in Chips Live, you go to the argument, well, we have had all these atrocities happen to us over all of our history, so we deserve this. You deserve to commit ethnic cleansing and genocide against my people because something bad has happened to your people over history. Is that an argument that you think works? that justifies what you guys are doing to us. And then when that doesn't work, because again, we are human beings, it goes to basically erasing Palestinians because suddenly we're just Arab. We're just Arabs. We are Palestinians. My family that has been there for thousands of years are Palestinian. We might have been Arabized, but we are Palestinian. You can't erase us. We're not Egyptian, we're not Lebanese, I'm not Iraqi, I'm not Saudi, I'm Palestinian. And I love when people just want to say we're Arab and generalize against us. We're not, we're Palestinian. Get that straight. The anti-Islamism has to stop. Saying that all people in Gaza, they support H group, despite what all of you want to think, you can all have your opinion. They are resisting occupation. I love how people who are not Palestinian and people who are not in this want to keep referring to them a specific way because it's so PC. They are resisting occupation and oppression. And by the way, they did not come in until the late 80s. So who was there? What was the justification for taking my family's village in 67? What was the justification for taking the villages in 48? What was the justification for unaliving Palestinians in the 20s and in the 30s? And so what? What was the justification for Tantura? You guys don't want to ever acknowledge any of the actual atrocities that have happened to Palestinians, but you want to talk about how it's so justified that you get to have your space, but we don't get our space. You get your space because you're so afraid what might happen if we have our freedom. Our freedom is coming. You don't really get a say in that. You don't get to suppress us just because, oh, in history, you have been oppressed. It doesn't work that way. And Anjad, if I hear one more person on a panel, reduce me and all Palestinians to just Arab, I'm gonna explode. I can't handle it anymore, Chip. It's like erasing my identity completely. That's what's happening when you do that. And also the anti-Islamism, read the Quran. Read the Quran and talk to Muslimin. We are not hateful people. We do not preach hate. Islam means peace. Islam means peace. It does not mean hate. But even if my brother, my Muslim brother, my actual legit brother in my family did something against me, like tried to steal my home or hurt me or hurt people around me, I would stop him. And that's my brother. You think I'm not going to stop an oppressor coming into my land? Sorry, Chip. Thank you.
You're muted, Chip.
You're muted.
So
Mustafa, do you hear what Abir's saying?
You've raised some very emotional points, and I want to give Mustafa a chance to respond real quickly though before Mufasa jumps in. I do want to share this. This is not me speaking. This is columnist at Haaretz, Gideon Levy, who is a very outspoken critic of Zionism, to be fair. But his words are this: there's a very pervasive undertone of racism in Israel among more people than the country wants to admit, his words. And it creates this environment of looking down on people who happen to be of Arab descent, especially Muslims. There's myriad examples of people saying it in the street through street interviews, like with Abby Martin, as well as examples of what's been happening, not the fear of what could happen to Israel if this or that, but what is Israel doing as a policy over many, many decades that has, like Abir said, resulted in people being unalived or even more so injured and otherwise dispossessed and further marginalized for decades and before 1948. So I understand Israel wants their security, but I want to see, Mufasa, what do you say in reply to Abir that she feels that her family historically has been totally harmed by Israel and therefore she needs to have some redress in the form of peace and autonomy? What do you say to that?
There were a lot of points made. First of all, I gotta say, if you look at the research prior to the 6th of October, like a month before, 80% of the Jewish people, the Israeli people, voted for two-state solution. Action has.
Can you just answer? I'm sorry. Listen, she was very emotional. I'm just trying to get one straight answer for your point of view, not the Israeli people. What do you think? Is it fair for them to want their own state? Do you feel that way, or do you think that they should have to continue?
For them to want their own state. I will get to that. I promise. I wrote it down. I go point by point. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. And then you said there are no evidence for raping and beheading and so on. This is very false. If you actually look at the evidence, there are plenty of evidence for that, including in a lot of newspaper, including footages of age group themselves. So that's just manipulation of the facts. But you may not be aware of it. That's okay.
So real quick, not trying to. I've looked far and wide to try to find it, Mustafa. I'm really being honest. Hold on, let me finish. If there are examples of that happening, I seriously want to see it. So I've heard there's evidence of it from many, many people. Every time I've looked for it or asked for links, they can't provide it. And maybe they say, well, listen, the government doesn't want the families to have to endure the suffering of having to have that released, and understandably so. But the faces and all sorts could be blanked out so that nobody knows the identities. And if to make those claims absent any release of evidence, before we go any further, please please acknowledge that people like me who are very fair-minded want to see that evidence, and I'll share it with my audience. You have my word, but please tell me where I can get it, because you're saying it's everywhere, right? You made a very broad statement. Where is everywhere? How about one place to start?
I would love if you let me. So write it down. First of all, the place that you can actually see evidence of raping itself, it's in Telegram, Hamas Atrocities. Hamas Atrocities, you can actually see of evidence of raping itself. You can go also
I'm writing it down.
Hamas Atrocities on Telegram. You can actually see evidence of women legs spread, clothes turned off, and abused.
Okay, gotcha.
You can also go to Hamas.com, also to HamasISIS23.com.
Hamas.com, just to let you know, that causes a security issue. It creates a what you call it, what is the word when you have a virus? It puts a virus on the PC. We can't go to Hamas.com. Don't
Not
go
a
to
real website, by the
I checked it myself and I found it to be a lie. You can do it from a public computer if you don't feel safe, but this is a way for people to avoid this site, but it's a lie. I checked it myself and it came negative, but you can do it from a public computer if you like. Also HamasISIS23.com. Also you can go to October7map.com, OCT the number 7map.com. And it shows in a very beautiful and horrible way what actually age group did, like step by step, all the people that were unalived, all the people that got kidnapped. You can also go to New York Times and read the article about the women, how Hamas weaponized sexual violence on October 7, talking about more than 30 women, evidence for more than 30 women's found leg spreads, abused in our genital areas, and so on and so on. I can give you all day long a lot.
Okay, so we just let you know. So you're talking about third-party recollections. A newspaper writing about something without actually providing the video evidence that you're talking about is hard. We know this. We know one thing, okay? We know there's a history of the Israeli system infiltrating the U.S. media and giving stories that are directly false. That's unfortunately a big pervasive problem. Have you heard the story of the boy who cried wolf, Mufasa? You know that story?
Hang on. Bram, 1 second. First of all, I've watched your posts many times. Most of the thing you bring is from newspaper, including what you just did in this live from Haaretz. So this is a double standard completely, but I do agree with you. I mean, newspaper can be manipulated easily.
It's not that. It's the history of the dishonesty I'm talking about, not necessarily the source of that dishonesty in terms of its release point.
But you specifically decided to take Haaretz, which is a very biased and known to be false newspaper, and I gave you one of the most anti-Israeli newspaper standing up for the Israeli. Never mind that. I'll move on. Because I don't want to take too much time. Now, the numbers that you quoted, they say 24,000 all civilians. But this is the total amount. This is the biggest manipulation of this war. This is the total amount of casualties, even though at least 9,000 already verified out of them. They want you to believe all of them are civilians, but they say zero combatant. Now, do you believe that zero combatant after 100 days of war with the IDF, there are zero combatant casualties in this war? It's ridiculous. There are also a natural mortality. It's between 200 to 2,000 every month. This is including these numbers as well, as if IDF unalived civilians, right? Also, as I said, the 10,000 rockets that age group fired into Israel aiming to civilians, at least 1,000 of them landed inside of Gaza, unalived estimation between 6,000 to 10,000. That is also in these numbers to blame us for that. Now, she said, referring to what she said, first of all, I'm Islamophobic. This is very insulting and completely not true. I'm not Islamophobic. I have Muslim friends. I served in the army with Muslims. I provide services to Muslims. She said that Islam is peace. That's a manipulation and lying. Islam is the worship of Allah. To surrender to Allah, that's what Islam means. I'm not being Islamophobic, but you need to be factually true.
I'm really not.
Hang on, I did not interrupt.
Let me finish this. Just a couple more seconds here, Mufasa, then we have to be able to respond.
And then she said 100 years of oppression. That was a complete lie. It started like in 1948. Of course, there were a lot of fighting prior to that. Since the Balfour Declaration in 1917, the Arabs fought the Jewish people a lot, and the Jewish people returned fighting a lot. Now, I'm not denying the Palestinian identity. They want to refer themselves as Palestinian. That's fine. You can refer to yourself however you like. That's fine. But if you really study the history of the Palestinian, they already only started to refer themselves as nationality in 1964. The name Palestine was given to the Jewish people in 136 by the Roman, but they are trying to manipulate the history. And with that, I have a big problem. 1948, you said, we were attacked by 5 Arab nations, literally a day after Israel was established. 1967, the Six-Day War, we were attacked prior to the Six-Day War, and we were surrounded just before we started the war. We were surrounded by tanks and soldiers at the borders trying to attack us. So action has reactions. When you attack us from all surrounding, 3 times already, 1948, 1967, 1973, with the intention of unaliving all the Jewish people, it's a problem. Israel offered 5 times this agreement.
I got to leave it at that for right now because listen, all fair points to raise. I think the next one you're going to talk about were the peace agreements where quote unquote the Arabs rejected peace even though the deals were so this or that or the other. You brought up some, let me just go down the points to make sure I understand what you raised real quick. I'll do very quickly. So you provided numerous website references as well as a newspaper that you think should be valid given the fact that I brought it up. Okay, fair enough. You mentioned the numbers. You said of the 24,000 civilians, your belief is that 9,000 of them are actually militants or T-words, and that leaves 15,000 that would likely be civilian, okay? Of that, you mentioned that 2,000 may have perished because of natural causes. Let me finish. I'm good. I'm just making sure I got this right. Okay, I'm just verifying because I'm trying to be polite and read back and make sure. You said that you're not Islamophobic because that's untrue, you're insulted. That Islam is not peaceful because it's submission to Allah. You said that it's not 100 years of oppression. It only starts in 1948. 100 years ago would have been 1923. You said that there's not a denial of the people, but you said that war has consequences. The initial war in 1948, when 5 Arab nations attacked Israel, has consequences. And then you said that 1967, the quote-unquote massing of troops on the border has consequences because that led to the conflict. So if I got all that right, and you were about to talk about the peace accords, so let me just quickly respond quickly to each, and I'm going to let
you got it wrong.
real quick. Listen, I'm giving you a ton of time, so I'm not trying to stop you from talking, okay? But we have to have some reasonable back and forth, Mufasa. That way, otherwise it's a one-way thing. The audience gets frustrated.
I said wrong. May I correct you on what?
Musafa, it's not your live, honey. We respect you when it's your
That's
live.
okay.
It's not your
Just
chips.
Mufasa, you're getting another chance to respond. Let me quickly respond. I'm going to let Abir respond, and then we'll come back to you to correct us or whatever you got to do. We have plenty of time here, so that's the good news. And those who are waiting, like Zion and others, thank you for doing so. I know this requires a lot of patience. I'll try to be quick. So I'm going to research the things you said in twofold. One of the things you provided, I'll spend the time to do it. If those things are valid, I will bring them up to my audience. You have my word as a gentleman. As far as the numbers go, I don't know for sure. I know it's the health ministry inside of Gaza, which obviously has a relationship to the H group. They could be putting out incorrect numbers. I don't know for sure. But my understanding is that the numbers they've put out is not that they're not acknowledging the death of fighters. They're putting out the numbers based on civilians that have perished only. I don't have numbers from them about the fighters, but I would imagine they acknowledge some or all of that. I don't know where the numbers are accurate based on Israel versus the Gaza ministry. If that's wrong, I'll correct the record. You mentioned that 2,000 people have perished as a part of that number from natural causes. Why is that? Did they just wake up one day and die because they had the C-19? No, it's because of the cutting off, the group punishment of cutting off food, fuel, water, and the damage that's been done to the various medical places like hospitals and other places where the staff's been kicked out or the army's come in and removed them, they've been hit by munitions or all of the above, and therefore they can't adequately treat their people. Whose fault is that? Is that the fault of the people who died, or is that the fault of the people who prevented the care and the services being accessible to them? Just a point of order. As far as Islamophobia, I mentioned the fact that there are a lot of people in Israel, maybe not yourself, who obviously have disdain towards Arabs. I've heard people say they should go to Arab countries. They, them, the other. This is all racist type of talk. If I use that kind of language towards black people in my country, they call us a racist. which that would be racist. If you use it in Israel, they, them, why don't they do this? Why don't they, those people? That's a different way of talking, not like, that's not respectful in any way, shape, or form. And as far as the wars go, yes, in 1948, 5 countries attacked, but what was done as a part of resisting the attack was reasonable. However, what was done in addition to resisting the attack was not okay, which was a complete ethnic cleansing of tons and tons of villages and multiple massacres, which are all identified by historical figures that have looked at them and said, yes, this is what happened, not what Israel wants to claim was justified because war has consequences. 1967, 2003, parallel. The U.S. claims that the Iraqi government is working on weapons of mass destruction. Okay, it was a narrative used to justify an illegal foreign war of aggression, to depose the foreign leader, to allow a new set of leadership to come in that would allow Western multinational corporations to do their thing in the country and to better control it versus with U.S. interest at hand and Western corporations. In 1967, yes, there were exercises taking place and there were troops in the Sinai in Egypt. However, there was not an intention to go to war. It was perceived that way and discussed publicly like that by the Israeli government, used as a pretext, which some people in Israel have finally admitted, even people that served in the military, that they believe that the government did that as a pretext to be able to go to war, to go do an illegal offensive war. By the way, the UN agrees too. It's not biased against Israel. It's biased against aggression. The international law stated after World War II, after the Mustache Man and company were going crazy across the globe, that this shit's not acceptable anymore. You can't just take something and call it your own. You can say it to yourself, hey, we justify. I could go to you and you could have your fist clenched and you're getting ready to, maybe hit me, and I grab a sledgehammer and knock you out and then I keep smashing your head in. They're not going to arrest you. They're going to blame me. Okay? The thought of somebody might attack you is not justifiable to take their stuff. That's just the way things work now. So to say somehow that it's not an occupation because, war has consequences, war when you aggress against somebody has consequences. It just hasn't been implemented yet. And there are resolutions against you, by the way, vetoed by the United States. And the United States provides cover for your country that you support for all its atrocities and all of its war crimes. They can't be held accountable because the international process to do so is blocked by a country with permanent veto power. Now let me go to Abir. That's my response. Is Abir still here? Yeah, and then we'll let you respond too, Mufasa. I promise I'll give you adequate time. And then Zane, you're going to be next.
Hi, I'll try to keep the emotion out of it. It's a little hard because I am Palestinian, you guys, okay?
First of all, do you disagree? Did I get something wrong in your opinion?
Honestly, I respect you so much, Chip, and I would rather privately talk to you about some things because I think it's a matter of perspective. So I think people who are Palestinians or Arab or Muslimin or Arab Christians, Arab Jews, anyone that's on has been experiencing this type of aggression from the West for basically our entire lives. We have a different viewpoint on all of this. And me as a Palestinian, I have a different viewpoint on all of this, but I understand where you're coming from and the reasons why you speak in the way that you do, which is why I hold you in such high regards. But for anybody who does not know what Islam is, please do not believe the propagandists. Okay, Islam is peace. Yes, we submit to Allah, we submit to God. That is what religion is. So I don't understand why that's being used to somehow say that we are, okay, yeah, I submit to my religion. Christians submit to their religion. Jewish people submit to their religion. That is what religion means. But my religion is under attack every time a conversation comes up with a Zionist. Every single time, Islam is under fire. There are Palestinian Christians that are my friends that have also been had family unalived during all of this. I have Palestinian friends that are atheists. And so why is religion being constantly brought into this? There were Jewish Palestinians before Israel decided that the Zionist movement decided that they wanted to create Israel. And yes, Palestinian villages were getting attacked back in the 20s and before 1920, even villages were getting attacked. I don't have anything pulled up on my computer to say this, and I'm so sorry. I was not prepared to go against a Zionist about this. But for somebody, again, all I am hearing out of his mouth is, well, we deserve this, deal with it. Why? You guys are barbaric, you guys are this, you guys are hateful, you don't deserve anything, we're gonna take it. It was always Palestine. It was all Palestine. I don't care if the Ottoman Empire, like we were under the Ottoman Empire at some point and they fell, and then Britain decided to do what colonizers do and come into our land. We were Palestinian. We are Palestinian. That's what it's Palestine. The fact that it was given, we were carved up and given away to another group does not justify that group came in and took our land. We were occupied. We are occupied. That's all it is. There are Palestinians. I even have family that have Israeli citizenship because their homes for hundreds, if not for hundreds of years, are on the Israeli side and they don't want to leave it. So they put up with the 60 plus laws that separate Arab and Palestinians and Muslims and Christians from Jewish Israelis, which is by definition apartheid. They put up with the checkpoint system when they go visit family in the West Bank. They put up with the wall around Gaza because they're trying to stay in their homes. But enough is enough. We need a one-state solution. And you know the difference between a Zionist when he speaks on the panel and the way I speak if you come to my lives. I say the people that, and empathy has heard me say this, if you have been there for generations and you can accept that I am a human being and stop calling me an animal and stop attacking my religion, then let's have a one state and be equal and be happy. What is the problem with that? Why are you so against equality? But if you are someone who is a settler, and yes, there are settlers, they are actually identified by the United Nations. There are over 700,000 of them in over 150 illegal settlements. If you don't want to go back to the whole of Palestine, just the two state, there are over 150 illegal settlements. They should go home. Go back to France, Italy, Spain, Barcelona, of course it's Spain, England, Brazil, Canada, the US, wherever you are from, go home. I'm sorry, I want to go home.
Let's thank you, Abir. Let's let Mustafa respond. Thank you for your heartfelt response. Mufasa, as far as do you believe that people look down in Israel, look down on Arabs, and do you deny that Islam does have most of its people that are peaceful? There may be militants who will use a very bastardized version of Islam to justify their criminal behavior, like ISIS, maybe some of the militants who perpetrated some of the atrocities, but the rank and file Muslim is not a vile person. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I have to say to the lady who spoke, I think you are a human, and I wish you the best, honestly.
Her name's Abir, A-B-E-E-R,
Abir. Abir, I honestly think you are a human being, and I wish you only well. I'm sorry that you feel that we think you are animals. All the reference by your people about our people talking about it is misinterpreted. We were talking about age group as animals, not as the Palestinians as animal. That's a misunderstanding and a severe one that manipulated by your people, not by us. Now you said Islam.
Hold on, just have to inject. So as far as facts go, if you all don't know, before Israel launched its attack and cut off all these things, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said, "We are dealing with human animals. We're going to fight accordingly." Just to let you know, that was a public statement made by a representative of the government of the country you're defending. Okay?
Give you a lot more out of context, because he also said a lot of things like the Palestinian is right and we need to protect the civilians and other things. So that's very easy to take one sentence out of people the declarations and manipulate it. Yes, but never mind that. First of all, I want to correct.
No, yes, mind that. What do you mean? Never mind that.
Hold on. Let's let Mustafa. Listen, I disagree with him on that point, but that's his point of view. Let's let him finish.
Okay, I want to correct you about the few stuff you mentioned that I said, which I didn't say. First of all, the 9,000, it's verified number. They are estimating 14,000, and that is out of the 24 total casualties. Now, you said something about the natural death causes. With war or without war, there are natural death causes all the time in every place in the world. So I took the very lowest number and I concluded at least 1,500 natural causes. Now you said something regarding to that they don't have food. This is actually misreading the data, because in matter of fact, if you check out how many trucks of supply, specifically food, medication, prior to the 7th of October and after, it didn't change. It's the same. The total amount of truck was reduced drastically, but only the other stuff like building materials, electricity, like stuff and so on and so on. But food is...
I'm sorry, just real quick. Just so you know, I don't know if you know this or not, Mufasa. You may not be aware of this. Here's my question: did you know that surgeries for people that are injured and had to have their arms or legs amputated were done without any anesthesia, and they had no medicine to treat them with antibiotics, etc. So why, if there was adequate supplies getting in, why would they do something like that? Sounds unbelievably cruel. Why would they not use the things that you're saying got in?
We're talking about the big numbers and you're giving a specific example. I can give you a specific example of a hostages ran to a.
That's been happening in rampant fashion. Many, many thousands of people have had to have limbs amputated without anesthesia. It's not one or two occurrences. Sorry, go ahead.
That the Israel IDF also supplied medical assistance and medical supplying and so on. But the next point was Islam. And sorry for not being understood correctly. First of all, she specifically said Islam means peace. The word Islam means surrendering to Allah. That's the word. The religion Islam is relatively peaceful. I acknowledge that. The vast majority out of the Muslims are relatively peaceful people. The vast majority, I'm talking at least more than 75%. Okay. At the same time, there are like between 15 to 25% by all intelligence army in the world that shows radical movement of the Islam, specifically believing in the Bukhari Hadith, which is very, very extreme, in the jihad, and this is a very, very violent part of Islam. It's not all the Muslims. The vast majority out of the Muslims are relatively peaceful. Now, why is that important? Not because I want to bring religion into the conversation, because they did. They wrote on their charter, for them it's a holy war of Muslim Brotherhood. They named this war Al-Aqsa flood. They made it very clear for them it's a holy war of religion, not for us. For us, it's a war about our existence, because age group stated on international TV they want to repeat the 7th of October 1,000,000 times, and they want to alive erase the only.
Okay, we got a bunch of points to go over again. Not to cut you off, I'm just saying we can only go so far down. I get 3 minutes per person is what I'm doing. That's about where we went there. So let me make sure I got you understood correctly, Mufasa. So you're saying there's a question between the numbers in terms, we talked about that. You're saying 9,000 versus 14,000. Got that. You're saying that we're approximately 1,500 to be conservative, quote unquote, anyway deaths that happen because just that's life. You said that the food trucks and medicine are getting in, that there's the fact that there's less trucks coming in, but the different things that are being allowed in was equivalent to before the war. You said that the IDF, in addition, has provided plenty of medical assistance to Palestinians. You said that extremists are waging a holy war, that the other people who are normal Muslims aren't quite so extreme, so they're peaceful, but submission to Allah somehow has an unpeaceful connotation. You said that the mission was labeled the Al-Aqsa flood, because they're bringing religion into it. But then you said that Israel's very existence is what's being fought for. Let me quickly reply and then give Abir a chance. And then let me let Zion come in after this. Okay, Zion, you've been very patient. Thank you for being patient, and Sparkle. I'm trying to do this quickly. So I don't know about the numbers for sure. I don't have any reason to disbelieve the Gaza Health Ministry, and I don't know how they're differentiating between militants and civilians. So I want to find that out. I will dig for that as well. In fairness, you said about the anyway deaths. I don't know how many of the anyway deaths are attributable to lack of supplies because of the constrictions. I'll look for that. Okay, the IDF providing assistance, I've seen so many more instances where the IDF is unaliving innocent civilians than providing help to any of them. So they may have done a few token things for the camera, but if you look at it as a broad thing of the Israelis providing assistance to civilians, that is overshadowed dramatically by the opposite, which is horrific. Then you talked about extremists, you talked about Israel's existence. Now here's the question: does somebody's aspiration, a small subset of a population, their militant aspiration, even if it's not changed, I think it's been changed, but you're saying it hasn't. Even if they do aspire to do something to a people, if that's a genocidal aspiration, that's much different than their implementation of that desire. If we watch what's happening based on, you want to talk about who's attributing what motives. Yes, there were a number of people harmed on the 7th. That's indisputable. Many people equate that to the most since the Holocaust. Therefore, this is some beginning of some massive unaliving. The H group, if it wanted to 1 trillion times, could not defeat the Israeli military and accomplish any of the things that you're ascribing to their motives. They just don't have the capability to, without other help from Hezbollah, from Yemen, and probably from Iran in total. And the Israelis are armed with nuclear weapons, so they can defend themselves to any degree. They're not going anywhere unless there's something horrific that happens, which is going to be horrible for everybody. So to claim that that means it's going to be genocide is bullshit, quite frankly. Okay? Ascribing that motive, who's actually dying here? Who's dying? Palestinians are dying en masse. Most of the entire landscape of northern Gaza is completely obliterated and unlivable. Yes, the Israeli military is occupying that area, but they've caused well over 1.4 million people, maybe more, to be homeless. They have nowhere to go but the south. There's no plan for the future. We don't know the extent to which the Israeli military is going to continue their policies. It appears to the outside world, because of all the anger that's coming back, the backlash, that Israel just doesn't give a shit, that they won't listen to anybody. They're going to proceed with their plans. They're going to claim they're going after the H group while forcing an ethnic cleansing of a territory that belongs to another group of people. That's what it appears to be from the outside. You can speak about it however you want. Now I'm going to let Zion respond to that if he disagrees or if he has other points of view he wants to raise.
Thank you so much. I just have a few points that I wanted to talk about. But first, I wanted to start with the trucks that he was talking about, because it's a lie, because Gaza used to get 550 trucks per day prior to October 7th. Now, from October 7th to the ridiculous pause that they had back in November, which is almost nearly a month and a half, they've gotten half of that number. So in total, from October 7th till now, they had over 5,000 trucks. So that's equals to what Gaza used to get in 10 days, which was not enough for 2.2 million people. Now, Mufasa and all the pro-Israelis, they always bring religion. They always want to talk about religion, right? When there is 1.9 billion Muslims around the world, if they really wanted to unalive Jews, we would have had serious, bigger problems in this world. Now, you have been trying for a long time to make your people believe this is about religion, to have them be on your side and approve the atrocities you have been committing against the Palestinian people. And why are you ignoring the Palestinian Christians? I have talked to them. They believe H is a resistance. They have told me, Palestinian Christians, that they are supporting their Palestinian Muslims and that they do have the same struggle and they feel the same about what's happening to Palestine. This is an ethno-state, and the reason you created an ethno-state, and the reason you did not allow Palestinians to return, because you don't want to be a minority. You don't want to be a minority. That's the truth, and you have to accept it and be honest, right? Be honest and tell people we created an ethno-state and we want to be the majority. Right? This is why you refer to them as Arabs. But you've been trying for so long by the corrupt mainstream media that you control to completely ignore the Palestinian identity by just referring to them as Arabs, right? But they are Palestinians. Again, you always talk without bringing sources. These panels, people that are watching, they don't care about your opinion, nor my opinion. They care about data, numbers, and facts, credible sources, right? So it's sad what happened to the Jewish people throughout history, but guess what? It wasn't done by the Palestinians, nor the Arabs, nor the Muslims. So you guys came to Palestine and they didn't have nothing to do with what happened to you guys. And it's very sad and unfortunate. But then you came and you are committing exactly what happened to you to the Palestinian people. It's so sad. So Muslims and Jews always had good relationships prior to October 7th. They lived peacefully in the land. There are proofs and evidence that they lived together. And go learn and watch documentaries about the Muslims and Jews under the Islamic rule. So October 7th, that's my last point, Chip. October 7th is not the beginning of all this. And that you can clearly see that Israel is trying to unalive as many Palestinians as possible. And I have been saying this for a long time. It didn't take Israel 24 hours to respond and go back and start destroying and unaliving people in Gaza. Do you really believe that if they truly cared about Palestinians and valued human lives, they would have at least taken time to have a better strategy to approach each group without unaliving such high number of civilians in such short period of time? We're talking about over 30,000 innocent civilians, including more than 11,000 children, and displacement of over 90% of 2.2 million people in just 100 days. This is insane. And one evidence of genocide is the unaliving of 100 plus journalists in 100 days. That is more than wars that happened for years, such as the Vietnam War and World War II.
Okay,
So
let's do this, Sign. You made some really good points as well. Thank you for your contribution. I do have to do this, okay, real quickly. We have about 170 people in here. We had about 280 when we first got on earlier. I would like to ask everybody, this has been a great conversation, by the way. This is a good example of how we can have civil, but, firm back and forth without people yelling at each other and calling each other names, which is wonderful. I want to thank and commend each one of you on the panel for, being comported in that way. This is an exception on TikTok, unfortunately. I want to thank Mufasa also for being civil and for making the points he's making, because it's greatly appreciated to think from both sides of this. I do want to ask the group, please tap on my forehead. They've limited my reach so much on TikTok that very few people see my lives, but if you tap and fill up that little bar at the upper left, it'll greatly increase the number of people who come. In addition, on the upper left up here, if you can see it, there's a little baby heart next to my name, underneath my name. The cool thing is, if you hold that down for about a second and a half, a list will come up, and then you can share the video with others. This is a really important conversation for people to hear. The only thing we can do right now, because all of the other avenues of advocacy are blocked off other than protest and boycott, we have to get people aware, right? Listen, there may be some of the things that Mufasa is saying. He gave me some good things to research today. I'm going to research them. If it turns out that what he's saying is accurate, I will share that with my audience. You have my word. I think that's important for us to go by the facts, whether we like them or not, right? That's really important. However, many people are on the fence, and there are people that have come around to learn different things they didn't know about before. We want to listen to both sides and let people make their own decision, right? So I'm not right. He's not wrong. These are takes. Right? Let's be fair with that. I just want to reiterate my schedule for those of you who are checking me out for the first time. My name is Chip Barnes. I'm a former Army officer. I fought in the first Gulf War. I know what combat is like. I was on the front lines. It sucks. Trust me, I'm a peace advocate now, okay? I'm out of the Army. I learned about the Israel-Palestine issue in 1989. I didn't have a clue before then, like most Americans, probably till October 7th. And so I came onto TikTok as a social media person a day before this happened, just out of pure chance. So I was able to speak to it in a way that had a different approach than most Americans. So my whole shtick is I do a lot of videos, which you can go check in my library, or I do a lot of lives as well. I go live 6 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 8 p.m. Eastern time until about 10 p.m. Eastern time. And then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays like today, I go live from 12 noon, and I go as long as I can given the guests and the conversations, because I have more time on Saturdays to do this, which I really appreciate those of you who are here. Thank you for spending part of your day. Here's the good news. This has been a great conversation, but some of you may have come in midway, and you may have missed the beginning or the middle, whatever it may be. All of these lives are recorded, and I take them and I put them up onto my YouTube channel and onto my Rumble channel. And it has the day and the date, and of course it shows you the length on the thing there. So if you're not sure how to get to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel, and if you don't know what Rumble is, it's another version of YouTube. It's like a competitor to YouTube. It has less censorship, which is the good thing about it. In my bio, where you see my videos, there's a thing called a link tree. So first, follow me, please. Click on the link tree. If you're outside the United States, they removed the clickable link. So all you need to do, I've written how you type it into the computer, the web browser. You can just type it in and then do that. So once you click on the link tree, a list will pop up that has all of my links for all my social media, my Twitter feed, my Instagram, yada, yada. That's where you'll find the YouTube and the Rumble. In addition, in the middle of those links are some Telegram groups. Telegram's another private messaging app that a lot of people, it was the app where Mufasa claimed I needed to go to check some of the video evidence for the atrocities he's talking about. So you can see things like that. You can see stuff there we can't put here because of the nature of the sites. And then if you look at the very bottom, there are also some donation links. And by the way, this is the last thing I'm going to say, we'll get back to the panel. At the very, very top of that link tree is a donation link for a charity that I very carefully vetted. It's the first time I've ever put up a fundraising link. I have nothing to do with it. It doesn't come through me. There is a way to donate. It's a group that sells clothing, that's making clothing at their bare bones cost to provide warm weather garments for the wintertime for people in Gaza who've lost all their possessions, as well as provide them other clothing like undergarments and important things like that for women mainly. So this is a woman-owned company, a beautiful woman, that she's totally decided to do this out of the kindness of her heart. So any donations that go there, it's going to go directly to the people. So I've made a sizable donation. I made a video about this. I hope you will too. All right, let's get back to the panel. Thanks for letting me put that little interlude in there. Here's what I want to do. We have a few people that we have to drop down because others are trying to get in. So Jax and Abir, thank you so much for being here. I have to get some other people in. So if you want to come back, please do. I'll try to fit you in. I'm going to go a good bit today. So thanks for being here so much, ladies. You did a great job, and thanks for your help. Okay, Mufasa, you've waited patiently. Let me give you one last chance to reply for right now, and then we're going to move on to probably Sparkle and Good. Okay? Thanks for being patient.
Thank you. Just to add a short, very important data about the numbers. Okay, so as I said many times on this live, I think it's very important to notice, and please check it out. Out of the total casualties that they want you to believe these are all civilians, they're including everything inside, including the more than 10,000 rockets that H Group fired on Israel, deliberately aiming to hit civilians, and at least minimum 10% out of them landing inside Gaza. Check it out and you'll see for yourself. So that will mean 6,000 to 10,000 estimation, rough estimation of casualties by H Group themselves. Now, regarding to the apartheid that you asked me about, there is a difference when we're talking about Gaza Strip, Western Bank, which are supported by Iran and Qatar, and there are Shmerist organizations inside of them, and the population in Israel. In Israel, we have 21% Arabs, most of them, like more than 70%, are Muslims, including 52 judges, including 2 judges in the Supreme Court, including 15 members of the government, 2 out of them actually calling for the annihilation of Israel, by the way. We have thousands of doctors, engineers inside of Israel. Some of them refer themselves as Palestinians as well. They have the same identity. They can vote. They can be elected to be prime minister if they could have enough votes. And every sign in Israel written in Hebrew, Arabic, and English as well. So to call it an apartheid state, I think it's misleading. Now, she said something about Christians. She has Christian friends, but if you actually look into it, there is 1.5% of Christians in Gaza. There are 0 Jewish people in Gaza. So that's actually apartheid in a lot of ways. Also, by the way, Bethlehem, the ancient city, very holy for the Christian, used to be 60% of the Christians. Today it's 20% of Christian. She said something about the walls around Gaza. It's inside of Israel territories, by the way, and it was there for a reason. They used to use snipers in order to unalive people in their home. He said something about the trucks and manipulated the truth, because he said 500 trucks. It was a single month that there were 500 trucks. The average, as I said before, is 200. And out of that, more than half is building materials and other stuff that are not aid, not food. If you look at the aid and the food, it didn't change. It's the same. So he's just trying to paint it out as if we are starving the people, but this is a manipulation of the numbers. Now, he said something about the reporters 100.
Hold hold on. You raised a ton of points. There's so many people. We have 7 people in the waiting queue. We have 6 on the panel. I've probably given you a total of maybe 36 minutes so far today to talk, which is not unreasonable. But I got to give other people a chance to respond. You can stay in if you want to. I'll still give you a chance to do rebuttals, but they need to be a little bit shorter now because I know you're trying to do your best. You have a lot of good information to share from your point of view. I just want to tell you quickly, I completely disagree with your assessment about the aid trucks. I don't know where you're getting that information from. My information on the ground from people in Egypt that are literally standing at the Rafah border crossing completely contradicts what you're saying. Okay, and that's from people live on the ground that are watching it. They've got a video camera there and they're seeing what the Israelis do and don't let in. Okay, so we'll get back to that. We got a bunch of people that are waiting. We have good, then Goldie, then peaceful, then insert. Okay, so let's go with good. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Chip? Thank you for having me. A lot of points have been said so far, but allow me to summarize it as much as possible according to what Mufasa said. Okay, me and Mufasa, and I'm sure a lot of people on different panels do have a lot of disagreements with what he said. First thing I'm going to start with is apartheid. Okay, he did say, well, Israel is not an apartheid state, it doesn't represent apartheid at all. Well, Mufasa, I want you to go and look up Hafrada. Hafrada is a Hebrew word. It's a Hebrew word, and it says it literally means separation. And this is the policy which is the government of Israel. Basically, it adopts to separate the Israeli population from the Palestinian population in the occupied Palestinian territories in both West Bank and Gaza Strip. As a matter of fact, Yitzhak Rabin himself, the Israeli prime minister from 1992 to 1995, was the first advocate for the construction of the physical barrier between Israelis and Palestinians. Of course, I'm not going to go into all these details, but Hafrada literally means separation. And when you talk separation of population A to population B, a dummy would understand that this is an apartheid. That's number one. Number two, you talk about taking care of the Palestinians that are in Israel. First of all, you don't call them Palestinians. You actually committed a genocide to their identity. You stripped them out from their Palestinian identity and you gave them equal rights due to the fact that you were happy to acknowledge that they gave up to the Palestinian identity. You don't call them Palestinian Israelis. You call them Arab Israelis because it's in your agenda to make sure every single Palestinian that lives in that land is not called Palestinian anymore. That's another thing. He mentioned 75% of the Muslim world is peaceful, but there is 25% that is violent and extremist. So are you trying to tell me out of 2 billion Muslims in the world, 500 million of them are violent and extremist? You'd have to be an absolute moron to say such a statement. So that means a population bigger than the United States.
Hold on. I understand your sentiment. We try not to use name calling. I just want to keep it civil. So no name calling, okay?
No problem. No problem, Chip. I didn't mean to say it that way, but it kind of triggered me. So basically, a population bigger than the United States is considered extremist and violent and able to carry out Shmerist attacks, as what Mufasa is saying. That's enough population probably to carry out, as he describes it, a holy war against the Milky Way galaxy. It's just insane to even think of this. Second, you did mention about Ivor Gallant, him stating that the people in Gaza are animals. Well, okay, let's not stop it. Let's not stop it at Gallant. Let's talk about Ben Gvir. Let's talk about Smotrich. Let's talk about Tali Gottlieb. All these PMs in his Knesset has actually mentioned that no one is innocent in Gaza, whether you're a pregnant woman or a baby or an older woman or even a young kid who is even thinking of growing up. You are considered a Shmerist and you are considered a threat to Israel. So don't come up here and say, well, it doesn't matter what Gallant said. You have PMs and you have political analysts that represent your government who came up on public TV and said disgusting stuff. And you say, never mind that. Actually, just yesterday, literally just yesterday, a video was posted about Ben Gvir of how he is planning to actually plan the migration of 2.3 million Gazans outside of Gaza, and Scotland is a great place where they have expressed their interest of taking the Gazan population. Why? Because Ben Gvir and Smotrich and the people of his like consider Gaza is theirs. He even said it. He said Gaza is ours. Everything in Gaza is ours. So don't come up here on these panels and say you're not calling to the unaliving and the genociding of the Palestinians when your government is clearly stating it, and your IDF soldiers are dancing and cheering and championing the idea and repeating it themselves. On top of that, we are seeing the general public now repeating the same exact statements. So if you were to ask me who's violent, you guys are the violent ones, not the Palestinians, not the Muslims. You guys are showing who is the true face of violence. Another thing, 1,500 deaths per day. Where did you get that from? You did not even give one credible source. You said it, I'm going to take the minimum number. Who are you to take the minimum example? And plus this, on top of this, 30,000 people are unalive. Why do 3,000 people who are unalive have to prove to you, Mufasa, right, that their unaliving is fake? This has been the same stance from the beginning of this war, where you and your Zionist government have established websites equivalent to Pollywood.com, because all you do is accuse Palestinians of fallacy and lies. They have to prove what they're going through to you as truthful. The one who's committing the unaliving is your government. The one who's committing the unaliving is your IDF terrorist army. Another thing, he did mention that the IDF is helping hospitals. What hospitals? You have literally destroyed any capability of a hospital operating in a normal stance. On top of that, when there's hundreds of babies, right, that needed incubators and no electricity was available, and just for us to take a camera shot of 1 or 2 IDF soldiers carrying an incubator to a hospital, that's a propaganda. That's for silly people to believe that the IDF is out there helping and freeing Gazans, when in reality it's nothing but a publicity stunt for the world to think that the IDF is actually helping. Another thing, these boxes that were on TV. So what army in the world would want to make sure or put effort that every single side of this box, doesn't matter how it's turned, right? It says medical aid or medical supplies, and in big font. So your effort is not really to help anyone. Your effort.
And written in English, not in Arabic or Hebrew, which, by the way, is for the Western audience to view. Sorry about that.
It's okay, Chip, no problem. Also, another thing, he did mention something about history of violence. First thing I want to comment about the video that I've seen him.
All right, just let you know, about 30 more seconds. We got to let somebody else talk.
No problem. I'll make it very quick. The guy who you mentioned that wanted to have a repetition of October 7, 10, October 1 million, he said it clearly before he even said these statements. He said, we are a product of the occupation, and as a resistance, we have a legal right to fight back. You never mentioned this, Mufasa, and that's why I call you a liar. On top of that, the Oslo Accords, when it comes to the Rafah border did give the control of the Rafah border to the Egyptian government. However, the data and everything recorded of what passes through that border, Israel has complete knowledge of what goes in and what comes out of that border. Let me see if I missed something, because he said a lot of stuff that I don't agree with. But this is what I have for now.
Right now. Keep an eye on it for right now. Just hold that spot, and if you want us to come back on, we have 5 people in the queue as well as a lot on the panel here. So let's go to Goldie next, and then Mufasa, keep some notes. I'll let you come back after Goldie, okay? And then we'll go to the next folks on the topic.
One more thing, actually. Sorry, Chip. One more thing.
I'm fine with him. Good's my brother. Good's a fellow comrade. I'm fine with that.
Sounds
yes,
good. Okay.
Just one more thing. Thank you, Goldie. Just one more thing, Chip. I really want to mention this because it's very important. He did say that the people that they're dealing with are violent. I'm going to take you a little bit through history. Qana massacre in Lebanon, a deliberate shelling of refugees in the UN camp, where 113 people got unalived of 13 artillery shells from the IDF themselves. That's violent. That's your government. The complicit arrangement of Sabra and Shatila massacres in the refugee camps in Lebanon. You're the one that arranged cover for the Lebanese forces under night to give them what they call light bombs, right? So they could go in and slaughter hundreds and probably thousands of these refugees. Your government is complicit of that. Dahiya 2006. Your soldier got kidnapped on the southern border, but you went hundreds of kilometers inside Beirut to bomb Beirut, which had nothing to do with the skirmishes that you claim. Your government is violent. In southern Lebanon, you occupy southern Lebanon. For 20 plus years, you established the Khiyam prison, where every single person that goes in the Khiyam prison doesn't even, their relatives or their whereabouts don't even know what happens to them. Your government ran that prison. So don't come up here and proclaim that you are civil and peaceful when you have a black history since the inception of Israel and since the inception of your Haganah and terrorist militias who became later on the IDF.
Okay, let's let Mustafa respond because that's a lot of information coming his way. Okay, Mustafa, please let us know what you think. Just try to be brief though. We got to keep moving on with others.
Sure, but I mean, there was so many points, it's impossible to refer to all of them.
Pick two and go with that, and then we got to move on to other guests.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'll do whatever you want. It's your life, but just
No,
pointing
I'm
out.
not trying to limit you. We have a lot of people that are waiting. That's all.
Sure, I understand. Just pointing out, this is how propaganda works. A lot of Palestinians making a lot of claim and no ability to reject it and debunk it from the other side. But I understand it's your life. You can do whatever you want. It's okay.
Please pick
So-
one or two things. Yeah.
Okay, so just the comment that he made, no innocent people, again, out of context. They were referring to the fact that people, the age group, when they're coming back to Gaza with hostages, like 9-month-old baby or 2-year-old baby girl, the population of Gaza actually celebrated as if they are a hero. On the other side, of course, Israel are not totally innocent, but when we catch someone committing a crime, we send them to jail. About the trucks, by the way, I get the numbers directly from the UN, as biased as it could be from the UN, but it shows that the amount of food is the same as previous to the 7th of October. Let me see. Sabra, he brought up Sabra and Shatila. It was actually a Christian attacking Arab Muslims, not Israel, but right, it's a very convenient way to put it up. Let's see, I'll have to choose between everything he said. Oh, he's mentioned Goods mentioned something about Hafrada, separation. That actually calls for two-state solution. It's not Hafrada between us and ourselves or the Arabs living inside of Israel. It's separation between the people that are attacking us and deny the existence of Israel between us and them, of course, like the separation between Mexico and USA or any other country, but he put it in a very manipulative way, as if we want to separate all of the people. Now, he said something about we don't acknowledge the Palestinian in Israel as Palestinian. If you go to USA and you have a passport of USA, you are American citizens. Or the same thing, they can refer themselves as they want. They can call themselves Palestinian in Israel. Once they have Israeli citizenship, they are Israelis. That's just how it works in every country in the world. But he put it as if we are totally against them. Again, one more manipulation after another. Everything he said is basically manipulations. Now, incubators, we all.
Okay, that's plenty of refutations. Let me just really quickly, I got to share my point of view because I want to get in here. Just real quick, I'm gonna let you get back in. I promise. I've been fair. I'm not limiting your speech. To say that the number of trucks that have gotten into the UN, that's not factually accurate as far as I understand it. If you have proof of that as a different thing, please provide it. I've written down other things you've claimed as far as references. I'll do the research, I promise. But that's not my understanding, and I think that's an absurd claim given the fact that we see so many people going without things. If the food was the same as before, people wouldn't be starving. People wouldn't be dying of starvation, which they now are. So that's ridiculous. In terms of the hostage thing, somebody pointed this out in the chat, and this is something that doesn't get acknowledged in Israel, which I think really needs to get acknowledged, okay? Many times in the West Bank, like it or not, Palestinians who are doing very little, they're not quote-unquote committing crimes. They're doing things like throwing rocks. Now, Israel calls that a crime. They call it T-word, which is absurd. Throwing a rock at an armored vehicle because you have no other way to defend yourself is not terrorism. So if Israel has a convoy of vehicles that roll through a town and people throw things at the armored vehicles, that shouldn't be a prosecutable offense. Or if it is, it should be something minor, not 90 days in jail, 6 months in jail, a year or two in jail. That's absurdity. Most of the people that end up in Israeli jail are not even accused of a crime. They're going through something called administrative detention. If you don't know what that is, that's basically where somebody picks you up. Let's say your cousin did something through a rock. They arrest your cousin. They find out where the rest of the family lives. They'll go in one night, terrorize the family, make the parents undress in front of the kids. They'll grab the children that are between 12 and 15, take them off to hold them, saying they have potential complicity, and therefore they're stuck in an Israeli jail as what's effectively a hostage. They're not even charged with anything. They're just held indefinitely, which can be renewed indefinitely. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's because they can. Now, if you don't acknowledge that reality, I don't know what to say to you, but there are probably 7,000 to 8,000 people that are in that circumstance, whether they're charged with petty crime through a military court that's illegitimate, or they're with no representation, no legal due process, or they're there for administrative reasons, just like the people in Gitmo are there forever, no, just lock and key thrown away. That's a hostage as much as somebody taken on an incursion one day. And I disagree with young people being taken or old people being taken, but think of it this way. If you're a group that's under oppression, you have thousands of your people being held by another group for no good reason, and you want to have some leverage to be able to trade out to get them back, which has been done in the past. They did what they had to do. That was the primary reason behind the mission. That was the goal. Unfortunately, the current government of Israel doesn't want to let someone else use the leverage. They're willing to actually remove them if they have to, and trying to go after the other group. So the parents of these people, or the families, are outraged at their government. They're literally screaming bloody murder at the northern border of Gaza. I got video of that. The mothers, and they're screaming. They're like, why? Get the hostages back. Get them back. The H group's not going to lay down their arms and turn over the lights, because the situation that preceded the 7th is what the problem is in the first place. Handing over your arms and your hostages just puts them in a worse place than they were before. Why would they do that? You wouldn't do that if you were under siege or being occupied by somebody. You'd fight back like the Jewish people did in the Warsaw Ghetto. It just makes sense. I don't know why people can't see those power dynamics and understand that resistance is going to accompany those dynamics in perpetuity, which is why the H group said you're not going to see the end of it, nor should you. And I'm not saying I justify what happened to innocent civilians. I abhor that. But I understand it within the broader context. And it's unfair to say that they're, quote unquote, T-rising your people, and they're sending these rockets in, which the Iron Dome knocks down 98% of, and the few that do drop on the ground don't hurt anybody. The amount of people unalived in all the years of the rockets is 10 people, for God's sakes. Meanwhile, you got the Israeli forces and settlers unaliving 1,600, 2,000 Palestinians per year after year after year after year. Some years way more. During the Nakba, 15,400, and during this incursion, potentially 25 to 35,000 people. We'll work the numbers out. This is not proportionate. It's not reasonable to compare the two. It's not reasonable to say that this group aspires to eliminate us, but actually doesn't do much, if any, of it. Meanwhile, your forces, who say they don't want to, get rid of the people, are getting rid of them in huge numbers. How can you possibly justify that? That makes no damn sense. Let the next guest go. Peaceful warrior. I'm sorry to go. It just frustrates me.
Chip, sorry, I don't mean to cut my brother Peaceful Warrior. If you could allow me 2 points just to what Mufasa said, because he did say 2 big lies and I want to refute them. Could you allow me that? Just 2 things.
I get 30 seconds and then 10 minutes of
No problem. All I need is 1 minute. All I need is 1 minute. He said Hafrada.
1 minute, I'll put you on, Mufasa, I promise.
All I need is 1 minute. He said Hafrada is actually a peace process. Now look at this definition. Hafrada, segregation, which is translated as detachment, or hipardo, translated as disengagement. The Hebrew word hafrada can imply both separation and segregation. Critiques have linked the hafrada policy to apartheid. Who are you to deny it, Mufasa? You're no one. And others argue the word hafrada bears a striking similarity to South African use of the term. So you could take whatever you brought. Okay, it has no sense. I'm reading you the definition of what actual critiques think what hafrada is. Another thing, you said the Christian militias. I never said the IDF were directly. I said they were indirectly involved in Sabra and Shatila, and it says it right here. It said one of the main Christian militias in Lebanon who actually did the massacre and supported by the Israeli Defense Forces, which basically surrounded Sabra and Shatila, the neighborhood adjacent to Shatila, and what they did was shoot flares so they could allow the Lebanese forces to go under the cover of night to actually kill and massacre all these innocent people in the refugees. So all I'm saying is that the IDF was complicit with that crime. And again, you're sitting up here and denying it when they actually had every single way and proof that they were actually complicit in this crime. And Ariel Sharon himself was actually brought to some kind of trial or investigation to see why he didn't take proper measures to actually defend innocent civilians in that incident. And I'm
Okay.
just gonna let it stay at that, Chip. Thank you so much.
Let's let him reply. I want to say one thing, Mufasa, before you do. You mentioned the fact that people are disciplined and and go through convictions if they do something that's an atrocity or against. That is very rare in Israel. Just to let you know. Yes, it does happen sometimes in the most egregious. We saw journalist Shireen Abu murdered by an IDF soldier. It was initially talked about being Palestinians that caused it. That was refuted. Then they called it an accident, which is ridiculous because she was shot in the neck between her helmet and her body armor. She was purposely murdered. Then they went to her funeral and beat the pallbearers who dropped her casket and tried to completely ruin the. And by the way, that's standard practice in the occupied territories for Israeli police and soldiers to go in and beat the very people that are trying to put their person to rest permanently, which is just a crazy injustice. Let's imagine if that happened in Israel. You'd be screaming bloody murder to the hilltops about anti-Semitism and blood libel and all this other stuff. That's not reasonable. And to not understand that or not put that in its proper context, that's indefensible behavior for any culture. That's abhorrent. Spraying crap water on people's homes in occupied East Jerusalem to make their lives miserable. That's unjustifiable. That's not security. So again, I'm not trying to take the floor. Let's let Mustafa respond. I'm, just these things upset me, whether they were happening to Israelis or to Palestinians. Mustafa, you still there?
Yes, even though I'm getting to talk very few seconds and then for long minutes,
We have a lot of guests that haven't had a chance to speak.
You just made, three of you just made like 100 points. There's no way I can reply to them, but I'll try to just some of them, okay? So first of all, you said about spreading shit water. It's misleading. It was seawater. Second of all, you mentioned this reporter.
No. Whoa. Hold on. I have direct video of that happening over and over and over and over and over and over again. You can't say it's seawater. That is horse shit.
About the newspaper journalist that got shot deliberately. You just forgot to mention that there was uprising at the area and they refused to let us investigate. The Palestinian in the West Bank refused to let us investigate. They wouldn't let us see the bullet for like 3 months. And when they did, their investigation shows this bullet actually hit something and then reflect and hit her in the neck. So it was not even a direct shot. So to say she was deliberately unalive.
Listen, Mustafa, I want to be fair, okay? I've given you a huge platform here with my audience, and I don't want to be unfair to you, but you're putting stuff out that is absolutely absurd. Come on, man. Let's be real, okay? The Israeli military, I got to keep you on mute. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. Otherwise, I don't want to drop you. So if you're going to say stuff like this, it's absolute absurdity. Come on, let's use common sense for a second, okay? That's like talking about what happened with the Warren Commission and this magic bullet that deflected here and went there. They shot her, okay? They shot a very famous journalist from Al Jazeera because they could. They've unalived more journalists in this conflict than in all the other conflicts combined in the 20th century. That's absurd. To make these statements like that, listen, I understand you're trying to advocate for your country. Fair enough. I'm okay with that. But you can't use blatant, ridiculous, untrue arguments. I don't want to go there, okay? Interpretation is one thing. That is absurd what you just said. Please don't say stuff like that. I'm willing to listen to you, but not stuff like that.
Can I hop in? I'll just go to an appointment. I'm just gonna say.
Hang on. It just happened to be that I watched the full investigation, and if you did watch the full investigation of this specific occasion you are talking about, it proves that this bullet, you see it. And
the investigation was done by the IDF. I don't believe a word they say about anything. They're compulsive liars. Repeatedly.
So it's your word against the IDF. That is what it is. And you trying to blame us. You claim it was a direct hit, even though there was a full investigation, including a third member in this investigation.
Listen, Mustafa, listen. Hold on. Let me finish. I got to have this straight, okay? I'm not trying to tell you what you need to think. It's on you to figure stuff out. You can have your own narrative, your own interpretation. I've watched this for 35 years. For you to say that I should somehow trust an IDF investigation, which, by the way, 99.9% of the time does not find any fault with the Israeli soldiers. This is absurdity. Yes, it was done. It was verified by a third party. Give me a break, man. The Israelis lie through their teeth. I've done videos about this. They lie as easily as you and I breathe. That's what they do. The public in the Israeli public believes their bullshit. It has nothing to do with reality. Never has, never will. It's how they operate.
Before Mufasa responds, I just want to
Hold
say,
on. I have been limiting his time. I want to give him another 2 minutes. I'm going to shut up, get 2 minutes till, and then we'll let somebody else talk. Okay?
Thank you. I do appreciate it. But honestly, it's ridiculous to claim it. If you actually watch the investigation, you can say the IDF lying about everything. I can say the Palestinians are lying about everything. You can go and watch Bollywood and see how many fake events they are staging and as if people were unalived, but it's a full staged event. But of course, you're gonna say the whole investigation, even though there was a third member independent in this investigation with the IDF concluded it. You can say whatever you want, of course. Now, you said more than 100 reporters were unalived in this war. You just forget to mention that we have proof that age group also disguised themselves as press to fight and fire rockets and fire with rifles and throwing grenades with vest of reporters. Now, you said about resistance, right? They are allowed to resist because you say it's an occupation. But in matter of fact, Israel received Gaza from the Egyptians under the peace agreement, because Gaza up till 1967 was under Egyptians. And then under defensive war, Israel got Gaza and Sinai and gave the Sinai back under peace agreement with the Egyptian. And the Egyptian insisted that Israel will keep the Gaza Strip. So by definition, it doesn't fall to occupation. And of course, later on, like in 2016, the UN decided they're going to do a new law that all of a sudden makes it occupation. Now about resistance. There is a way. I'm not saying that the Palestinians should not resist. They can resist. There is a way to resist. If your way to resist is deliberately aiming to hit civilians, but of course Israel has Iron Dome, so it's okay to fire more than 1,000 rockets every year for the past 70 years on the main city of Israel, which, by the way, any other country in the world will go to a full-scale war just because of that, and then going on the 7th of October, door to door, unaliving anybody you can find, kidnapping 9-month-old baby, 2-year-old baby girl, 85-year-old ladies, and evidence from the hostages got released is that they were brutally abused, were put in the dark for like 3 weeks. They could not eat, they could not.
All right, we got to close this out now.
Hold
on. Let me use the host make one comment. Okay, the idea that quote unquote Egypt gave Gaza to the Israelis is absurdity. The Gaza Strip was taken over during the 1967 war, as was the Sinai from the Egyptians, based on this preemptive concept. Okay, Israel occupied Gaza until 2005 with settlements. Because of security issues and other issues, they decided it would be best to withdraw those settlements. They had to forcibly remove the settlers who didn't want to go. That's what happened. Therefore, Gaza is considered Palestinian territory by everybody in the world. This idea that it was given to Israel is, I don't know where the hell it even comes from. Now, as far as 1967 goes, the international community does not recognize the legitimacy of the territory captured during that war because Israel's claim that it was making a preemptive move was not verified and validified by everybody except for Israel. So that's an absurd claim too. However, if you want to call the territory occupied and owned by Israel, then you can't have separate roads, separate bridges, checkpoints for everybody but Israelis, different colored license plates, on and on and on, controlling what does or doesn't go, building permits, the whole 9 yards. It's absurd to claim. You either have to say, one, you're occupying it and you're apartheid, or B, you had a preemptive war and it's not yours. You know, the whole thing is just inconsistent from top to bottom. Now, I gave this person tons of time to make their points. I disagree with 99.9% of what he said. The 0.1% that I don't agree with, he made some point about the numbers. I will investigate that in fairness because I don't know for sure. Claiming that the H group dressed up as reporters and then they were unalived, that is BS. These are legitimate independent reporters, have no ties to the H group, who have all been unalived. Their families' residences have been bombed and killed the journalists' families because of retribution for not stopping reporting certain things. The whole onslaught on Gaza has been one war crime after another under the cover of going after the H group. Let me let C. Scarlett say she wants to talk about something, so jump in, please.
Okay, I just Mufasa. and I'm a pretty peaceful person, but I got triggered and I started yelling, and I felt really wrong about that. But Chip, I love the way you run your lives, and that's all I wanted to say is, I really love that you have like I'm missing the word right now, but you really you turn people off when instead of letting people get to that fighting aspect. And I love that your dedication to peace. And I think it's easy to get triggered, and I just want to tell you, there's sometimes, like, I know Mufasa has, is doing his thing, but I think it's important to remember, like, the frontal lobe thing. And certain people, like, I was, like, surprised that I got so triggered. And also, Mufasa, I know you're still here. It was wrong of me to yell like that. And I really appreciate how you haven't, in this live, you haven't, interacted anyway. But Chip, I love the way that you manage this live, and I think it's really great. So that's all I really wanted to say. And I just wanted to point out too that it's easy to get triggered about all this stuff, and I appreciate your dedication to peace. And I'm gonna pop out now. I'm not gonna say anything else. But thank you.
All right, real quickly, thanks for the nice words. And I appreciate you being here. I do want to say one thing. As I say over and over again, let's just flip the script for a second, okay? I know this is difficult to conceptualize, but let's just say, for example, that instead of the Balfour Agreement being for a peace establishment of a Jewish state in historic Palestine, let's just flip the script. Let's say there was an adamant group of Palestinians who wanted to establish a state just for Palestine. They created some arbitrary boundaries. They got the British to go with it along with the Americans, and they established this delineated line. And a lot of Jewish people, unfortunately, had to be expelled from the territory, mostly at the end of a gun, and also with terrorizing villages and unaliving people and forcibly displacing Jewish people. And they scattered throughout the territory, many in what's called the West Bank, many down in this little strip of land called Gaza, many more who eventually went there as well, and other countries in the region. So the Jewish people got spread out. Then subsequent to that, the Jewish people being angry about the fact that they were historically, grandparents' houses were taken, they eventually resisted the Arabs who did this to them. And they had more militant members, especially in the Strip, who fought back periodically. They also had people that went into the Arab cities and they would boom buses and cafes, right? Terrible things to do. But because they're being so brutally oppressed by the Arabs, understandably so. Now, each time that happened, the Arabs got completely angry and said, how dare you resist us? You're nothing but a bunch of T-words. We're going to show you who's boss. We're going to do a 10-time response because we have to show you how to behave. We're going to take land and we're going to subject you to more horrific, unalivings and brutality. Then over time, there was a relative period of quiet. The two Jewish groups disagreed politically with how to manage it, so they had a split, and it was a more moderate group in the West Bank and a more moderate group in the Gaza Strip, and a more militant group who had a different idea of how to govern society. And then they eventually attacked the Arabs out of the blue, caught them off guard, did a terrible thing to unalive 1,200 Arabs. And the Arab government got really pissed and came in and said, okay, once and for all, we're going to stop these Jewish militants. Then they come in and they bomb the crap out of it. They unalive 15 to 20, maybe 30,000 Jewish people. They subject them to a lack of food, water, electricity, fuel, and medical aid. They say they're going after the Jewish militants, but in reality, they're destroying the landscape and unaliving people and journalists. And you're watching this as a Jewish person going, why can't we catch a break? We're being exploited. We're being subjected to Arab atrocities. How would you feel if that was the script going on? There'd be screaming from the hilltops of anti-Semitism, blood libel, bloody murder. But somehow when you flip the script, it's justified because it's Jews instead of Arabs or others. And you can put Eritreans and Ethiopians in those two roles or reverse them. It's not about the person or their ethnicity or religion. Who gives a shit? It's about the power dynamics and the exploitation versus those who are exploited. Oppression and occupation versus those who are the oppressed and occupied. Period, full stop. I don't blame Palestinians for resisting in any form. In fact, the international law claims that if you are occupied or blockaded, both of which are acts of war, you have a legitimate right to resist by any means necessary. It doesn't say you can't do X, Y, and Z. It's like, dude, get off my back, get the boot off my neck, give me a chance to live free and clear of your indignity, give me autonomy, and give me some sort of decency in my life, some sort of, don't denigrate me all the time and let me be me, and we'll leave you the fuck alone. You're saying, leave me alone and we'll let you have a state maybe. That's not fair to them. What are they supposed to prove to you that they're peaceful while they get subjected to more and more land theft and subjugation and home destruction and go on down the line? It's the other way around. You got to give somebody a chance to be who they are and let them be. That's why they're resisting you, not because they're resisting you so they can't do that. That's the whole point. All right, I've talked enough. Let me let what is it? I'm sorry. I can't see your name, but you know who it is.
Insert. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, how's it going? I'm coming as a representative of the Christian Arab community of the West Bank. I heard a lot of things that were said by he who shall not be named, and I'd just like to come and debunk them. It sickens me every time whenever I see a Zionist come on this live to say that the Arab Christians stand with Israel when they spit on us in the streets, when the Festival of Fire during the Holy Month, where all three religions came together, we were attacked. Our holiest men were attacked. We've seen rise in assaults on Christian Palestinians, other than alongside with our Muslim Palestinian brothers. I also wanted to let you know personally, I'm liking what I'm hearing so far. I haven't met you yet. A friend of mine sent me your page, but I'm liking what you're saying, boss, and thank you for your service. Also, I work as a translator. Well, I don't work. I translate for reporters and doctors within Gaza. If you have any questions about that, I'd love to answer you if I have any knowledge on the questions you have for Gaza, because I am constantly in communication with them. I also stand for H. I stand for the resistance. I stand for the PFLP. I am myself. I'm a PFLP member, and yeah, free Palestine from sea to sea, from river to sea.
Chip, really quickly, this is the friend I was telling you about when I came on your live before. When I asked you, would you consider going on panels with me? That would go with reporters, and you would be interested. This is the person, one of the people.
Okay, yeah, please send me a message either through here, most preferably on my email, which is listed in my link tree. If you go to my bio, you may not see a link because if you're outside the US, but in my bio it says, I wrote it says Linktree Chip Barnes. So just type that into a web browser. At the very bottom it says email me. Just send me an email. That way I'll keep you on my list. My messages get too lost on TikTok. Okay? I look forward to seeing you at some point in the future. Thank you for being here. Thanks for letting me know that, Goldie. Okay, let's let someone who's been waiting to come in who couldn't get in was I Am Palestinian. So let me let him in. He's been trying to get in here forever.
Hey, Chip, my blood was boiling, and because this guy really thought that he could make fool of us. I have been to his live multiple times. What he would do is he would him and a couple of his gang that would force you and actually you to say anything. These people, they really think that we are fool. We don't understand anything, and they come here with all their lies, propaganda, and bunch of nonsense for the past 77 years. It's just like a broken record, keep repeating the same thing. And I'm so sick and tired of it, Chip. And I think you gave this guy enough chance to understand and realize and come to a conclusion that they have done something wrong. Yet this guy, not even a single time condemned anything from his government, yet he didn't prove anything. Everything what he said, it was wrong, all lies, propaganda, garbage, nonsense. That's all what he does, that guy. That's all what I was trying to say.
Okay. In fairness, he did raise some points about numbers that I don't have certainty around. He also brought some things about atrocities being confirmed by certain videos that have been posted on Telegram. So one of my comments to him was, where's the proof? He claims there's the proof. I'm going to look for that. And like I told him, and I mean it, my word matters to me, if I find evidence to support his claims, I will mention that to my audience, and I will share those resources with those who would like to see them, albeit not here because of the nature of that type of evidence.
Chip, just last thing. You really think that, when he says Hamas.com or Hamas,
I'm not going there.
I know. This guy really think that he can fool us? I mean, for God's sake, this is, I will start laughing. I'm like, can we take this guy serious, or is he just here to troll us? That's all what I was thinking about.
It could be. It could be. All right, I'm going to make a request to the audience here. Thanks for coming on. I know this is a pain in the ass because I don't want to make you do anything you don't want to do, but I normally average between 300 and 500 people on these lives, and I'm down to like 100, 150. I would guess I'm being limited. So if you could please do the following, we're going to go for about another 15, 20 minutes. If you could tap on my face, which creates the likes, that'll up the likes. Keep tapping. There's a little bar at the upper left. You'll see it filling up. Please keep tapping. It'll give you a notice when it fills out. The other thing you can do, and I hope you'll do this. This is a fun discussion. I'm enjoying it. If you go up to the very top up here, there's a little thing, a little heart underneath my name. If you hold that thing for about a second, a list will pop up of all of your friends. Just invite them to come check it out. You never know who might be available. We can have more people in the discussion. I want to repeat my schedule. For those of you kind of watching for the first time, my schedule for doing these lives is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Everything is Eastern time, 8 p.m. Eastern time to 10 p.m. Eastern time. And then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays like today, start at 12 noon Eastern time. Normally go till 2 o'clock. Today's an exception. We had a big panel, a lot of conversations with somebody who's pro-Israel. It wouldn't have been good to cut it off because it was kind of flowing. So probably gonna go for maybe 15 or 20 more minutes. I'll try to give everybody a chance to talk. I just got to go take the dog out eventually, right? And then I want to let everybody know, if you came in midway or later, these are all recorded and then they're uploaded to my YouTube and my Rumble channels. Those are available through my Linktree. So if you go into my bio, there's a clickable link underneath my bio that says Linktree Chip Barnes. It has a little chain link to the left of it. If you don't see that, if you're outside the US, they've removed that. I don't know why. The writing to get that done is in the bottom of my bio. You just have to type that into your computer browser and hit enter. It'll take you to the same place. At the very top of that, you'll see a donation link. There's some women that have a group. It's called Women for Palestine or something to that effect. And they found a clothing manufacturer in Egypt who was willing to, her name is Nicole, I think. She's willing to make clothes for the people of Gaza at her cost. And I did a video about this. It's like, if you go to my video page, it was one of the last 2 videos that I made. It explains it. But the bottom line is, I made a pretty big donation. I hope you'll do it. It's getting things like jackets, coats, warm winter shirts, undergarments, because I can tell you, having served in the military, when you wear the same pair of underwear for like 5 weeks, it's awful. So getting people, you got to think, these are the basics of life that these people don't have. It's like, imagine living without your house is gone. You don't have your stuff, right? So what do you do? This is to provide some of that to people. And it is getting in on some of these aid trucks that I've heard. So it's legit. I've went through a painstaking process to make sure it was legit, because you never know, right? So if you can do that, please do. I think it's important for us. We always ask, what can we do? There's something we can do, right? And I've verified that it's going to provide a difference to people. So I hope you'll do it, because, what else can we do? I'm very frustrated like the rest of you are. Okay. And just one final thing about this, my whole shtick is, I'm an Army veteran. I've been in war. I'm very much a pro-peace advocate. I found a candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm very critical of U.S. politics, right? I think it's irreparably broken. But anytime we can get somebody in a really important position of power, a U.S. Senator has a big platform to speak. I found somebody who's running as an independent, and it's up in New York. And it's to unseat the other senator, not Chuck Schumer, but Kirsten Gillibrand is her name. And she's up for re-election. The Democratic Party is going to do every dirty trick in its books to try to eliminate anybody challenging her. But this person, her name is Diane Sare, S-A-R-E. You can find her on YouTube. There's a really good video that I want to put in my Linktree. She's wearing a Christmas sweater, like a red Christmas sweater. So if you go through the different videos after you search out her name, watch that one. She did a great presentation. It's about 20, 25 minutes. I think you'll like it. Anyway, other than one issue, I agree with her on every other point that she raises. There's some ecological stuff we disagree on, but based on what's going on in the world, I don't think anyone's going to change that at this point. So among all the other issues, I think she's the best candidate. I'm going to campaign for her. I've done this before. I'm going to work with her. I'm traveling to New York in February to meet up with some other campaign organizers. And she's a good person. Trust me, I've met her, spent time with her. She's a good person. So I hope you'll give her some thought and consideration and mention her to others, because as a grassroots candidate, we're going to have to work together. We're never going to get out of these problems unless we start communicating and helping each other. That's just the bottom line. Okay, we have, let me see, I have Dull Guy that hasn't talked yet. Please come on and share with us. Glad to have you here. Thanks for being here. I think you need to unmute your mic if you haven't done so. Okay, Dolga is not responding. Let's go to Sammy. I think Sammy hasn't had a chance to talk recently.
Hello, Chip. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
I wanted to tap into the Ben Gurion Canal project. I know it's been mentioned many times before, but now I'm seeing what's going on in Gaza. It's very just clear that that is one of the main agendas in their book, what they want to do. They already have land plans and residential areas and all this already planned on paper and waiting. The booming of Gaza is just disgusting in itself, but it's even more disgusting when you look at it at a capitalist point of view here. The demolition, just to say, even if there wasn't all this unaliving of things here, just the demolition cost of removing all of those buildings would be thousands upon thousands of man hours and money. So using surplus booms to use that to demolish and level Gaza would be more economically smarter and cheaper to do, saving at least 75% of the budget just doing that and using the rest of that money for the cleanup crew. And it's crazy that they're actually doing these atrocities in Gaza at the same time, already have cleaning crews there, exhuming graves and already moving rubble out of the way. It's just with profit over human lives. This is extremely disgusting, even adding on top of Israel's agenda here. Human life Palestinian life is just no value to them. The other thing about that is you have the gas reserves out there, and by building that canal, they can avoid doing business with any Arab countries such as the Suez Canal. And being that, they can use their own canal because they're not going to charge their own shipments through their own government canal, which would save them billions of dollars a year just in transporting that gas. So capitalism over human life and desecrating of graves, this in itself is a disgusting act of inhumanity and shows that Palestinian lives do not matter to them, to this government. And I think I briefed that up enough for Chip to fill in anything that I may have missed. I just wanted to keep that brief, Chip.
Okay, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, a lot of things keep going through my head as I hear people sharing things like this. So this is the sad part about reality we're in. There are people in the world, I know it sounds crazy, I've talked about this in my other videos, they just don't have the same empathy or concern for things like destruction of the world, buildings, people, animals. It's just, to them, it's profit driven. And if it increases their net worth or gets a greater return on investment, they're okay with doing it, even if they do it indirectly through like a money manager. And remember, who makes money off these conflicts? Like, where does the money go? We say we're giving Israel, $14 billion, but that money doesn't really go to Israel. Where did most of that money go? It goes into corporations who provide the weapons and the munitions, and that money goes to the shareholders of those companies. Who are those shareholders? They're the most wealthy people and the most wealthy funds. And who owns shares of those funds? Again, the same wealthy people. So it's BlackRock doesn't own BlackRock. Wealthy people own the shares in BlackRock, who get to set the agenda, which includes things like we're seeing. So I call this whole group of people, and it's not just Americans, although many are, I call them the sociopathic serial accumulator class. And unfortunately, they pervade the decision-making process with most decisions in the entire world, especially the United States, which drives much of these policies. And unfortunately, it's created an oligarchy that creates a separation between a system that should serve the constituents, but ends up serving special interest groups, high net worth individuals, corporations, and of course the national security state, which includes this whole war machine with surveillance, three-letter agencies, and of course the media apparatus. That's what creates the Pepto-Bismol that coats the whole thing and confuses it for the public. And in the meantime, you have a media system that pits left versus right. So quote unquote, the kids are fighting while the parents are grabbing all the money that goes to these chain stores and everything else through society. Better subsidies, lower taxes, increased rules as far as what you can do to hide your wealth from taxation. The average rich person, you may not know this, I didn't know this, they don't get a paycheck like you and I do that gets taxes taken out. What they do is they have a bunch of stocks and other assets, and they go to a bank and they say, hey, can I borrow $5 million for my living expenses this year? And they go, sure. You have, $100 million of assets. We can usually give you 5 mil because if you default, we can take your assets, right? It's a secured loan. Then they pay like 4 or 5% interest on the payments. They pay back the loan throughout the year. So that's how they live their lives. And then the interest expenses can be used as a deduction against any income from their dividend stocks, for example. And they put those things into trusts, which are further tax deductible. They get money back from the IRS. I know it sounds crazy. You have $100 million, you get a tax refund for being rich. Now, what a scheme is that, huh? Not a bad deal. So most of these big companies pay no tax, and the high net worth people pay no tax, and people like you and I pay all the taxes. In fact, the small business owners that make between $100,000 and $400,000 effectively pay like about 55% of all their wealth in taxes. They're the highest taxed people. The richest people in the world pay almost nothing. It's really sad. Okay, and this is one other fact. In 1970, of the total amount of money that's brought into the U.S. government, about 39% in 1970 came from corporations and high net worth individuals. And in 2023, it's down to 6%. So the amount of money that the wealthy and the corporations are contributing to the welfare of society has gone down by over 5-fold in the last 30 years, last 50 years. Pretty shitty, huh? Okay, we have good. Let me see if Dull Guy's back on the radar here. Dull Guy, I tried to put you in earlier, but it wouldn't let you in. Your microphone is still muted. And if Dull Guy, sometimes people leave their phone and they go do some other stuff. So I understand. All right, I'm going to take you down, Dull Guy. You're welcome to come back up. Got a few minutes left. I got a few other guests that are coming up.
You can let Goldie speak on this one, Chip. I'll wait.
Okay. All right, Goldie, you have something else to say? All right, I think Goldie's.
Yes,
So
yes. No, I'm right
okay,
here. I'm right here. I just
go
wanted
ahead.
to so I was going to communicate a few things that kind of clarify what the person had come up, that the pro is Israeli person. I want everyone to in the audience, this is just for the audience to know. I don't want to derail the conversation, but obviously when Good's a comrade of mine and he was able to better express that, so I was happy to give him my time. So I just want to clarify a few things. So that the person Mustafa that came up, it's you guys need to, in the audience who was here to see that he does work for the IDF intelligence. So a part of that mission is to propagandize. Okay, so that needs to be aware. hgroup.com, spelled out, has been debunked. It is out of Tel Aviv. That's where it's stationed. And when people have dissected that internet, it doesn't go anywhere. Like you can use an IP at different spaces. It doesn't connect anywhere into Gaza or where the freedom fighters are first. When I've debated Mustafa and my comrades on this panel, Dark Hipster and Good below me. Everybody follow them. They're amazing people. They know a lot about what's going on. They're very educational. Anyone who's watching, follow them. So when we've debated him in the past, we will utilize Telegram and he will debunk it by saying Telegram is not a good source. But however, when it works for him, it's a good source. So just be mindful of that, first off. Second, when he brought up the aid, I want everyone who can hear me and heard him. The aid trucks are purposely being held back. 2 United States senators, one from Oregon, one from Maryland. The one from Oregon, he voted for a ceasefire long ago. The one from Maryland didn't, but now that he's gotten educated on what's going on, he wants one as well. So they went and they found that they are holding back on life-saving, like birthing kits. They said they don't want to do the birthing kits because they're scalpels and they could be used as weapons. However, there's already scalpels in Gaza. They just ran out of them. Obviously, that's a silly reason. They don't want to put in tents because they have poles. Well, there's poles everywhere. The buildings are desecrated. There's poles all over them. There's pipes everywhere, right? Oxygen, generators, they're not sending those in. So when the United States asked the person that manages that part, he said, "Oh, we are sending all those things in, water, food, medical stuff, all that's not being denied." And then the United States these 2 senators released their statement. So they asked him first to see what he would say and then released. And then South Africa used a lot of what was said and found, and the United States charged them for delaying it on purpose. because their facility is only open 8 hours a day when it's supposed to be open 24, and they were charged with holding up the aid. So that's something that needs to be aware too. So when that is a part of, G-side, that's a part of it, preventing healthy births, preventing life-saving, and just in general. What else did he say that I wanted, that I was like, oh, that's a red flag? Oh yeah. So he says that, I think by now everyone will know that in Israel, there are Palestinians who didn't want to leave, like Abir had said, but there are 65 laws in place right now that have been active that set them apart. So they're still discriminated against. So that makes it an apartheid state. So he will argue that, but he leaves out the 65 laws specifically against them. So that's just what I wanted to speak. And I'll go ahead and go down, because Dark Hipster and Good are they're phenomenal on this, and they
Hi,
can
Goldie.
speak to it too.
Yeah, and
I
I want
appreciate.
and I want to
Yes.
Appreciate
take
it very much. Thank
yeah,
you.
and I want to take that. I want to take what Goldie was saying a step further.
Okay.
They are not allowing. So there is a disabled community of about 50,000 Palestinians living in the occupied territories. The Israeli government will not allow things as simple as batteries for people that are hearing impaired that have hearing aids, because they have a law on the books that says that if they have what's called a dual use law. So what that basically says is that if the Israeli government deems a product to have T capabilities, they will not allow it to go into the occupied territories. So you have people that are hearing impaired living in Gaza as we speak, that cannot hear the boom booms as they're being dropped. So they don't know when to evacuate. That is how insidious the other side is when it comes to withholding aid.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, I hate to hear things like that. So somebody's saying, did Joe saying somebody's account got shut down? So did Mansour, someone just said that Mansour, who's a journalist inside of Gaza, had a live for 5 minutes and then it got kicked off or something? Is that what they're saying? I don't know. User 4481, you keep trying to come up. Just to let you know, what you have to do, just to let you know, if you're going to try to come up, it keeps timing out. You have to exit the live. You have to exit TikTok and then come back in and then try to come back. I'm not going to be able to bring you up. Okay. So Dark Hipster, that's all you want? Is that anything else? Gold?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say real quick, I hope for Mansour, this is gonna sound really weird to say, but I hope for Mansour's sake that his live got banned, because I hope that it's not the alternative. And
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
leave it at that.
Yeah, that'd be horrible. Okay, thanks for being here.
Yeah, just one more thing, Chip. I wanted to add, because I think Mufasa did mention when he said the numbers of the unalive people in Gaza. He said, well, the IDF said almost half of them are actually Hamas militants. Now, here's my question: when you get briefings from the IDF and they get clear questions on why the indiscriminate bombing, why the bombing are so clear in its intent of collateral damage, the response is, well, we cannot tell who's the civilian and who's the age group members. Well, if that's the case from the beginning, how are you able to identify after the unaliving that half of the population, or half the numbers of the people half the number of the people that got unalived are verified as age group members? It's impossible. It's an absolute lie. It's an absolute way to approach this as a cover to give yourself the excuse of what you're doing and to cover the massacre that you actually committed in Gaza. That's number one. Number two, throughout history, right, and I really don't hear any pro-Israelis talk about this, right? Jewish resistance, right, is hailed from the pro-Israeli side whenever someone does bring it up. The vast majority doesn't bring it up, right? But only a few. Well, why is it allowed only for you, but not the Palestinians? Why is it a given right only for you to resist, but not other people? Now, Mufasa, and I don't want to keep mentioning his name, he said, well, there's other ways to resist. Well, if the Palestinians resist with a small rock or stone, you call them terrorists. If they resist with a screwdriver, you call them terrorists. On top of this, there's instructions by the IDF and the Israeli police on how to actually shoot these civilians and how to make sure that they are handicapped for life by kneecapping them. So I'm really not sure what type of resistance they want to make legit for the Palestinians when they're not allowing it in any shape, way, or form. Another thing he basically talked about is deflection of that bullet. How many times of clear evidence, right, do these guys want to come up and lie about it? So every single time there's a mass unaliving, they want to blame that on someone else. They want to say someone else have done it. In the past, and so many times in the past, they have done the same exact process of unaliving innocent civilians and blaming it on others. And it's just only a matter of time until someone does a legitimate investigation and it will show the IDF was responsible. On top of that, there is clear evidence up until now that you cannot hide that the IDF is a narcissistic, violent entity, the same example of Homelander, who champions freedom and who champions the correct I want to say the unextreme way to live your life that actually befits the idea of Western democracy. But in reality, have we seen Homelander himself, the absolute definition of terrorism? And honestly, I do not see the IDF representing in any way, shape, or form an innocent entity that is basically pushing freedom on a group of people. But in reality, it went from the main objective of fighting the H group to a main objective of fighting the entire population of Gaza. And the evidence is overwhelming. It even took international lawyers to have enough evidence to put up a case against Israel. I mean, if you don't have enough evidence, you know, and a legitimate case, there's basically no reason for you to give it, but it's there, and it's unarguable. The only people that are argued it and actually went in the ICJ doing the same exact shifting the blame by saying Hamas over and over. This is the exact same rhetoric that we heard from every single pro-Israeli that came and talked about on these panels. Is basically shifting the blame from the atrocity that they're doing and say, look, it's not our fault, it's because of them. This is going to end very soon. This is the end result of this is going to be a lot of people are going to be held accountable. A lot of people are going to be brought to trial and justice, because this cannot be ignored for these atrocities to happen, and no one is basically held accountable. And honestly, I see this war from the start, it happening on October 7. And taking immediate strikes on October 8. It literally didn't even take 24 hours for the strikes. What intelligence have you brought to make sure you have defined your targets of what is considered the H group? You didn't. It's absolutely clear from the beginning. This is a vengeful military strike where you have taken your anger on an entire population. This is the only way I could see it. And it's present when I see the IDF soldiers leveling an entire neighborhood of 8 to 10, 12, and everybody's cheering it. You cannot come up here on these panels and justify these actions. These are actual actions of nothing but a G-side. And when it's basically pinned on the state of Israel that is a G-side, I want to see how they're going to basically argue against this. They will not have an escape from this.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And the world is now seeing, this is what I think I'm most pleased with, even though this is horrific and it's taken this level of martyrdom and destruction to achieve this. The great thing is that the world is seeing for the first time what Israel actually does. They've never seen the atrocities in the West Bank. They've never seen the atrocities with the different operations that have come in, Operation Cast Lead, all those other BS operations. They mass unalive Palestinians. Period. Full stop. Always been the case. Sometimes it's one or two at a time. Sometimes it's a half dozen. But it always adds up to a lot more people who unalive. I understand the concerns as far as rockets are concerned from Israelis. Oh, we're always under attack. They want a G-side. No. They want to get out from under occupation and siege. That's it. They could care less about you being Jewish. Who gives a damn? There may be a few extremists, just as there are on the Israeli side. Just because there's an Itamar Ben-Gvir and a Benjamin Netanyahu and a Bezalel Smotrich does not mean that all Israelis feel that way. Most don't. Similar in Palestine. There are some people in the age group and some of the leadership that might say some very unflattering things about Jewish people and their intent to do X, Y, and Z. Who gives a shit? That doesn't represent the overarching feelings of the vast majority of the population, which would drive the overall policy. What people want, most people want peace, and the only way you can achieve peace is by have the other side given dignity and autonomy. Otherwise, if you're always oppressing somebody and you're controlling them, what are they going to do? They're going to fight back. It's normal behavior. And if the script was flipped, there'd be outrage in the world. Oh my God, how are these Jewish people being oppressed so badly by these crazy? There'd be outrage. But for some reason, because the people have darker skin and they're Arab Muslims, there's no outrage. Well, now there is some outrage. Thank God. And maybe it'll carry us to a point where that outrage creates a different set of outcomes. I sure hope so. I'm embarrassed to say that my country, where I live, is the one using our tax dollars to supply the weapons, the munitions, the military backing, the political backing at the UN. It is disgraceful. It is unconscionable, and it makes our leadership complicit in the crimes that we're seeing that South Africa and others are bringing at the International Court of Justice. And quite frankly, those in charge deserve to be convicted, and they should be convicted, and after which they should be punished. So I hope there's a way to actually hold them to account, because people who perpetrate crimes against humanity and crimes against human beings should be held accountable anywhere it happens. That's it. So just to let you know, my normal schedule, the dog's starting to get a little anxious here. My normal schedule is from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you liked what you heard today, I enjoy having these conversations. I try to be fair. I try to listen. I didn't know this person had an intelligence connection or whatever. And if they did, listen, you're doing your job. Okay, so be it. But again, to obfuscate and lie or hide by omission is a standard tactic by Israel. I got to tell you, I've been watching the IDF operate for, hey, Ruby, hold on. I've been watching the IDF operate for decades, and they lie through their teeth, just like they did about the 40 babies that exploded onto the media, right? No evidence. Hey, shut it. Get on your bed. Get on your bed. Ruby, get on your bed. I'm going to take you out. Relax. She wants to go out and play. I'm going to take you out. Relax. Just sit down. Okay, we're going to go in like 5 minutes, okay? Anyway, to finish up, my schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern time until 10 p.m. Eastern time. Please come back, join us. If I didn't get to your questions or if you got on the panel, whatever it may be, I apologize. I do my best to try to give everybody a chance to talk. I try to be fair. I'm not perfect. And if you felt like you were not being given adequate time, Musafa, I'm not trying to limit your speech. But when you say things like, outrageous things like what happened with Shireen Abu Akleh, come on, man. I mean, let's be fair. She's out covering something with all the journalists that have been unalived in Gaza alone. It should give you proof that it was done intentionally. The Israelis, because they have the power to do so, they fire on people that are peacefully marching. They say, why are these people violent? Why do they have to resort to violence? If you're protesting peacefully and you're for the right of return and you're walking around in an area and you get shot at, some get hit here, some get hit in the arm or the knee, some get hit in the groin, for God's sakes. That's some pretty horrible stuff, right? And that happens all the time. There's just so many things you can point to that are unacceptable behavior. Could you claim that what the Palestinians do to resist is unacceptable? Yeah, you could probably make some claims there. I'm not going to deny that. I don't like what happened on the 7th. I'm against violence at all. But the dynamics that preceded that weren't peaceful. People say we had peace on the 6th. They started a war. We're going to finish it. That's not the case. It may have been fine for you in Tel Aviv. You're sitting pretty, drinking a cocktail or smoking whatever you're smoking and having a good time dancing on the beach. But that's not peace for people that 20 kilometers to the west or to the east are living in a living hell with checkpoints and a blockade and no access to freedom or autonomy and total control by another army. That's not peace. How can you call that peace? You wouldn't want to live under that, would you? I doubt it, right? So that's why these things happen, and they're going to keep happening, which is why the leadership said it, until there's a dignified, peaceful solution that works for everybody. That's it. So I talk about this and other issues about geopolitics every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern time to 10 p.m. And then just like today, every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 12 noon until about 2 p.m. We went a little over today, which I'm happy to do from time to time when we have a good panel. But I don't like BS propaganda. I try to be as honest as I can. And like I said, if the script was flipped, I'd be criticizing the Arab government for the same behavior. It's the same stuff, no matter who's doing it. Has nothing to do with Jewish people, nothing to do with Judaism or any kind of tropes or any kind of anti-Semitism. That's just a bullshit smear tactic that's used to delegitimize the legitimate criticism of the state of Israel and its soldiers and its police, which is abhorrent and unacceptable and needs to change and should be held to account. If you want to check out my other resources, I have a link tree in my bio. It says Linktree Chip Barnes. If you're outside the country, it's written into the bottom of my bio. You need to retype that into a web browser. Either way, whether you click or retype and hit enter, it'll launch a page. Hold on, baby. It'll launch a page with my social media links. I have a really cool link on my Twitter, which lists all the people that I follow there for the last 5-6 years that have been helpful to me in terms of learning the stuff that I share with you. You can hear it from the horse's mouth. I never, like I say, I never find anything out first. I'm always a guy who reads about it, comes on later, repackages it, evaluate it, and try to share it back with you in a way that I think is fair and balanced. But everybody has their bias, right? Anyway, check that out. I think you'll find it helpful. Also, I have some Telegram groups, which are in the middle of my link tree. One is called Palestine in Focus. One is called Action for Change. We talk about these big picture issues where we have to overcome the power structure. It's not going to be done through traditional steps. The system that created the problem is not going to be reformed through the system that's being co-opted, in my opinion. So what are we going to do to get around it? People always ask, well, what then, right? Well, go check out the link. You'll hear the conversation. Maybe you can get involved and help. And then there's also a list, there's a thing at the top that says if you want to donate to a good cause, I've vetted it. It's to help people in Gaza get warm weather clothing. A very nice woman named Nicole, who owns a garment manufacturing company in Egypt, has agreed to provide clothes for cost. She's manufacturing no profit to get to the people of Gaza, including warm weather clothing, jackets, whatever, and then of course some undergarments, which are necessary for living a dignified life. It sucks when you have the same pair of I can tell you from being in the Army. So that's all I have for you today. Again, if I missed your questions, I appreciate your support. They're limiting my reach of this stuff, so I really appreciate you being here. When you come, if you can tell other people about me, I appreciate that. And if you can also support me in any way, just to let you know, I have a Patreon in that same list of stuff in my link tree. Or if you want to send a one-time donation via things like Cash App, I'm doing this full time now, and so I have to figure out to make it work. With that in mind, what I'm going to do, I wrote down a bunch of ideas of how to make that work, right? I don't want to implement something without talking to my audience first. I'm going to be scheduling a live in the near future just to talk about that. So if you want to participate, kind of an interesting thing, I'm hoping to figure out a way to make it work for both you and I, but I don't want to overdo it, So I'm going to ask for input and see what people think, and then we'll figure something out that makes everybody happy. That's the way I like to do things. And that's it. So for today, that's it. If I missed your questions, I apologize. I got to take the dog out. So I'll be back Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I might do an impromptu tomorrow. We'll see. Have a great rest of your day. I appreciate everybody. Thank you for following me. It means a lot. And I'll see you next time. Okay. Thanks a lot.